Hello and welcome, everybody. It is draft day. Welcome to the Barroom Network. Your mock drafts, your mock trades, your combine evaluation, your film study, all of that means nothing now because it's draft day and we're going to find out where these college athletes are going. Welcome to the draft special here on the Barroom Network. I am John Buffone, and with me tonight, the specialists, the draft analyst, and the people that you go to for all of your draft information, Danny Shimon and Niel Stopczynski. Guys, this is like your Christmas. I'm excited, so I can't even imagine what you guys are like. How are we feeling tonight?
Yeah, I got bubble guts right now. I'm like, it's like Christmas Eve, and I'm getting ready to open up my gifts, just for to see. So it's just the anticipation. Like you think you know what you're gonna get, but then you get that pair of underwears. You're like, oh my god, I got underwears for Christmas. So hopefully it's not that reaction. So well, hopefully we got a nice shiny new toy here for the Bears to play either on the offense or defensive line. We'll see what happens.
Neil, how you feeling tonight?
Amped up, man. Been amped up all day. Got my Red Bull flying high. Got the wings on. Ready to rock and roll, man.
Yeah, we are right up against the Panthers, who obviously traded up with the Bears. They're going to be on the clock here momentarily. But before we start going through the 1 through 9 and all that other stuff, I do want to talk about that number 1 pick because we're pretty sure it's going to be Bryce Young. But we do have some people that think that there could be a better opportunity there. There could be a better choice there. So let's go to SB Nation's Mark Schofield on why he actually likes C.J. Stroud compared to Bryce Young. He actually had his opinion on that, so let's see what he has to say about that.
Stroud is my QB1. The ball placement, the ability to, like, if you say, for example, a quarterback has to make 75 types of throws, right? Throws to the flat, layered throws over the middle. He can throw, say, 73 of those, no problem, no questions asked. Maybe on some layered throws like seams where you've got 2 high safety looks and you've got to get it over the trail defender, but drop it in front of the safety. He might struggle with that at times because he trusts his ball placement a little bit too much. But that's really nitpicky stuff. And then you saw what Stroud did against Georgia. So you add that all together, and that's a great quarterback. But look, if you want to say it's Young than Stroud, I get that too.
All right, guys. So we're moments away from the first pick. Danny, I want to start with you. What do you think about the Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud or anybody else in this draft? Is C.J. Stroud could he actually make a case for the number 1 pick? Not that I think that's going to happen, but in your mind, do you think that he could have made a case for that?
Yeah, definitely. He was my number 1 rated quarterback on my board in terms of the position rankings. He was a guy that I thought show the ability in terms of make all the throws, like Mark just said there, in terms of dropping it, feathering it over its second and third layers of the defense. Good arm strength. The size is obviously a key there. 6'3", 215 pounds, I believe it was. And for me, what convinced me early on in the season, I was a little concerned with him because it always seemed like whenever the pocket got messy, whenever there was people by his feet, he had to move his feet, shuffle his feet. His accuracy would get off, kilter. He get a little panicky, but then. And really, towards the tail end of that season, and then really the Georgia game. And I know everyone talks about the Georgia game, but that's where he really put on a show. And we saw a C.J. Stroud that we hadn't seen before, at least I hadn't seen before. So I think that really convinced me, this guy can operate in a pocket in which there's guys all over, and he's a guy that's going to have to kind of create with his legs, buy some more time. And I know he had some great receivers at Ohio State, but man, he was making some NFL type plays that day versus Georgia. Now that's really convinced me. I think he is the number 1 overall pick. Now, in terms of overall tape, I think Bryce Young has the better tape of all these quarterback prospects. But for me, a guy 5'10", and be honest, guys, he was 204 at the combine because a lot of that was water rate. This guy's going to play around not 190 probably in the NFL. A quarterback at 5'10", 190, that is hard for me to go ahead and go up at number 1 and make a big trail like that. And put my whole faith in my organization in a kid like that. Even though he's got great tape, good character, everything's good about it, that size does bother me. That scares me.
Neil, you comfortable with Bryce Young at number 1?
Nope. To be honest with you, no. I don't like any of these quarterbacks in this draft, really, particularly from a perfect fix standpoint. The size on Bryce, it's got to scare you a little bit. So you saw what happened to Tua this year. And primarily because he's a tiny dude, and I don't mean necessarily, he's a little bit bigger than Bryce is from a weight and girth standpoint. But I think Bryce played this year at 184. I'm not correct. He shows up with a couple of 10-pound weights in his drawers, weighing in at the combine at 204, and all of a sudden we think he's a perfect fix. I'm not sure if he's a perfect fix, but outside of the size thing, outside of the height and weight thing, he has pretty much everything you're looking for. And so it's a matter of, can you keep the kid healthy? Him juxtaposed against CJ Stroud, completely different from the standpoint of height and weight and girth and all the physical attributes. But at the same time, with CJ, kind of disappeared a couple of times this year. You look at games like against Northwestern, games against Michigan, where he doesn't necessarily show up. He looks very pedestrian. But then you have the game against Georgia, and yeah, Danny said everybody talks about Georgia with good reason, because he played like a potential franchise quarterback during that Georgia game and damn near got the win. So you can go back and forth on CJ all you want. We could talk about it a little bit more once he gets selected, but that's kind of where I am on it. I'm not really, too big on either of these quarterbacks in this draft. There's actually one quarterback not being talked about whatsoever that I really like that may end up going the back end of one, but that's kind of where I stand on the Bryce versus CJ thing.
Yeah, and we're about to find out the Panthers are officially on the clock, it looks like. So about 8 minutes before that pick. Guys, before we get into that, I do want to say we already got some great interaction in the chat room. Let's talk about the Bears real quick, because that's why everybody is here. What's one position or one player, if they take it number 9, is just going to drive you guys crazy? Because Danny, I know that you're not all about getting a cornerback because it's kind of a deep draft for that. Niel, I'll start with you. What's somebody, if they take it number 9, you think, why, with all the options, why they take that?
We have incredible needs in the trenches. We need offensive linemen. We need defensive linemen. Anything outside of that, to me, is going to drive me crazy, honestly. And it may be Bijan Robinson, who I have loved ever since he was in high school, ever since he was in Arizona, coming into Texas, his freshman year in Texas. I told people this kid was going to be an absolute stud. I know there's a lot of smoke around. The Bears may take Bijan Robinson. Would be an amazing addition to the offense. However, doesn't fill immediate needs, right? The talk around Jackson Smith and Jigba would be another thing that drives me absolutely crazy. We have 37 receivers on the roster right now. We can't take in any more receivers on this team and expect everybody to get equal playing time. Now, I think we do have a top 4 right now that are going to give Justin Fields plenty of options. But I mean, I could go on and on with different position groups that would drive me crazy. The one that could potentially happen that might irk me a little bit, but not necessarily drive me crazy, is if they take a corner, because that is a position of need. That is as Ryan Poles put it, a premier position that he was certainly going to address this offseason. He has not addressed it during free agency, which tells me he will absolutely certainly address it during the NFL draft. If he takes one of these top guys, Witherspoon, Gonzalez, with that pick 9, I could understand it. But at the same time, we need trench players. We need an edge rusher. We need a right tackle. We need an interior offensive lineman. We need a 3 technique. We need those positions to be taken care of immediately, and those will help us become a better ball club faster than taking a player on the corner.
Danny, I kind of have an idea what you're going to say, but what's a position if they take it number 9? Are you going to be seething here on air? Well,
just like what Niel said, I mean, the corner position is something. Again, I know it's a need, and I know that these guys are, Witherspoon and Gonzalez could be the best players available. So I mean, if there's a scenario there where the top 3 defensive guys are gone, the top offensive lineman is gone, that could be the best player available, and then I can see why they're taking that corner. But I just feel like that is again, if the way they're building this defense, they started last year with the first 2 picks in the secondary. I wasn't too happy about that, and then they came back and in free agency this year, their first 2 big signings are linebackers, so they're building their defense from the back forward. And I'm always a guy like Neil. I'm in the trenches guy. Your defensive line sucks. The more pressure you get on your the quarterbacks, the better, the less your corners have to cover. So you don't even need premier cornerbacks if you have guys in the trenches that can get after the quarterback. So some might say, well, you don't just want to reach for a guy. No, you don't want to reach for a guy. But my thing is, if your top 3 defensive guys are not there, Paris Johnson's not there, I would try as best as I can and try and trade down. Hopefully as a quarterback there, some teams want to come up, even if you get a 3rd or 2nd round pick, just move down and get an extra draft pick, and just, then now if you move down to the middle or, late teens or early 20s, now if you go whatever, if there's a cornerback as your best player there, tackle. Hopefully it could be a player there, a defensive end like a Miles Murphy or something like that. That's where you go there. So that's what I would like them to do. Obviously my biggest thing is to see if either Tyree Wilson or Jalen Carter fall down to the Bears at number 9. If one of those two guys are there, you do not trade out. You do not do anything. You take one of those two players because they are premier talents and they fill the position of need.
As we're waiting, as the Carolina is building the anticipation to announce Bryce Young as their number 1 pick, about 4 minutes left on the clock. Let's talk about this draft in general, because I think this year has been fun just to prognosticate, because there is so much uncertainty. We don't know where a lot of these players are gonna go. Niel, where does this kind of rank as far as like? Sometimes you can go chalk with a lot of this stuff, but I think after 1, it gets kind of murky.
I don't know, guys. Well, last year we thought this was kind of chalk, wasn't it? This year it's completely up in the air. I have no idea what the hell is going to happen. I think we have a good idea what's going to happen at 1. After 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, going all the way up to 31. I have no clue, dude. It's the most unpredictable draft that I can remember in recent memory. I'm sure there was others I'm not thinking about right now, but at least ever since we've been doing this show, I feel like we've had a pretty good idea, a pretty good take, stance, whatever you want to call it, grip on what's going to happen 1 through 10. And then after that, what's going to happen 10 through 20. And then how the Browns going to finish out. It's so damn up in the air. And part of the reason why is because you don't really have a whole lot of round 1 grades in this particular NFL draft. You have a lot of guys that are really good, that have a bunch of question marks. You have a bunch of other guys that are pretty good, close to those guys with question marks. And then you have then you have like a massive group in between, maybe say like, 30, 40, all the way down to 100, to where anybody can go at any time. And that's what's going to make this draft so much fun. And it's going to create a lot of chaos, I think.
Yeah, what do you think, Danny? I think like they're about the pick. It looks like the pick is in. We're waiting for the commissioner to come up. While we're waiting, what's your overall view on this draft?
Yeah, I mean, typically I always ask, what's the first wow moment in the first round? And in this draft, this first round, we can have wow moments at number 2. I mean, we can, if I've heard anywhere from Texas getting Will Levis, they could go defensive lineman, they can go, CJ Stroud. I mean, you hear all these things. They could trade down. It's all these different, So the number 2 pick is going to be key here for, in this first round, also key for the Bears, because if they go defense, the Texans, now that drops a quarterback down possibly. So if you're the Bears at number 9 and one of the quarterbacks, whether it's Anthony Richardson or maybe even CJ Stroud is sitting there, your phone should be ringing if you're Ryan Poles. And now the offers are going to come from teams like Tampa, maybe a Washington, teams that didn't think they have a chance at a Stroud or Richardson, now can say, all right, let's move on. A Seattle, Seattle is smitten with Anthony Richardson, but they might just want to go with a better player, and looks like a Jalen Carter, number 5. They have pick number 20. They might jump back up with that 20th pick, and they have a lot of capital from the Russell Wilson trade. They might jump from 20 back up into the top 10 to try and get Anthony Richardson. So they might kind of try and double dip there with their 2 first-round picks. So a lot can happen. There's going to be a lot of wow moments tonight. I mean, there are going to be players that we didn't think. Like I have probably 2nd or 3rd round grades on. Neil probably 2nd, 3rd round grades on that I could probably go in this first round. So
there it is.
There it is. The first overall pick in the 2023 NFL draft. Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama. He's going to Carolina. Basically what we all thought was going to happen at number 1. But for the sake of this conversation, there you go. He's 21 years old, 204 at the combine, although who knows how much he actually weighs, who knows how tall he actually is. Hands 9.5 inches, arms 30.5 inches, did not run the 40. So guys, Neil, I know that you said that, he wasn't, gung-ho number 1 generational prospect just because of that size and that fear about it. What do you think Carolina is getting in this quarterback, and what do they need to do to make sure that he flourishes in the NFL?
Well, I think what you got is a kid that is a big-time team leader. He's super competitive. He's super poised. He's intelligent, and he's also got a lot of humility to him. They were playing that audio clip nonstop today when he's talking about, I understand I'm short. I can't exactly go ahead and stretch myself out, right? And so he knows who he is. He's very comfortable with who he is, comfortable in his own skin, so to speak, right? But I mean, as a player, he's extremely accurate. He doesn't make mistakes. Like I said, he's super smart. He has great pocket poise, great feel for it. His throwing motion is about as good as you can expect for a kid coming out of college. He won the Heisman Trophy, 2 years ago. Was one of the permanent team captains for Alabama. So I mean, in terms of all the other stuff, he checks a hell of a lot of boxes. It's just can you keep him healthy? And so I think that with Carolina, they do have some weapons there. What they got to do is make sure that they bolster that offensive line, and then also kind of create an offensive game plan, kind of create a scheme around him to help him excel and flourish. Not that he needs a whole lot of help, but again, we just got to keep the big guys off of him, keep his jersey clean, keep him out of the training room as much as possible. There's a lot of comparison, cross sport comparison between him and Steph Curry. You can kind of see that on film. He's a distributor, is what he is. He's a pass first guy, kind of like we talked about with Justin Fields a couple years ago. He's a pass first guy, doesn't look to run the ball, which is great because you don't want that kid, out there in the open field taking hits. He's a really interesting player that has a lot of the qualities that you want from an intangible standpoint, from a position-specific standpoint, how he distributes the ball, his intelligence, all those different types of things. So if they're getting a great player, how are you going to utilize him?
Yeah, Danny, are you afraid that this could be a situation where you get that smaller quarterback in, and then all of a sudden he's fed to the wolves, and because they lose DJ Moore in that trade, what weapons are going to be around him? They signed Adam Thielen, so what kind of situation is he stepping into Carolina, and can he flourish there?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the actual environment, I mean, they have a terrific setup with Frank Reich, the head coach. Josh McCown is the quarterback coach there, and Thomas Brown came over from the Rams, and so he's going to bring some of that wide zone Sean McVay kind of offense there as well. So I think they're going to give him a nice environment to go ahead and flourish there. And obviously they signed Andy Dalton there as a veteran. So if he's not ready to start week one, they have a veteran presence there. But what's the one thing is, and I hope for Scott Fitterer, who's a good dude. I've met him. He's a nice guy. From all accounts, Frank Reich is a nice guy as well. I hope it works out for them, because this is a lose your job type of move here, to move up, trade up to number one, and pick a kid that's an outlier, a kid that never been this small, going first overall, right? And everybody talks about Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson was a third round pick. How many years ago? Russell Wilson was thicker in terms of his frame, stronger arm. Bryce Young has an average arm strength at best. In terms of what he gets from the quarterback position, I thought his tape is pretty good. I mean, in terms of he's probably the most prepared, I would say, him and Will Levis, because they play in a pro style system, both those guys in college. So, in terms of anticipation throws, throws where he's throwing receivers open, you see that on his tape. And you also see, does do a great job, in fairness to him, he does a good job of finding those passing lanes and getting the ball out without getting him batted down. So, those are all pluses for him. And like I said, I hope it works out for the Panthers, and I hope it works out for Bryce Young. But to me, it's a real risky move to go up to number one, and then just have to and rely on someone that's going to be an outlier in terms of size and play strength and all that stuff. So it's not even the I'm not a big fan of quarterbacks that are underneath 6'1". If you're under 6'1", I think that's going to be you're already at a disadvantage. But the fact he's going to be under 200 pounds, and now I was watching his tape versus Tennessee, and there were some hits he was taking. I was like, ooh, I was cringing. Now I was in college, I was in SEC, and I'm like, imagine these men that are going to be going after him now in the NFL, and I just hope it all works out for them. So.
Yeah, so Bryce Young goes at number one. Number two now, this could, and I saw this in the chat, Freed, that this pick could set up the rest of the draft at number two. So what could be some possibilities here, Danny, that could set up and could impact the Bears as well? Because if they take a pass rusher, that could change how things shake out. What could be some of the options here?
Well, if they do pick a pass rusher, then obviously that brings CJ Stroud down now, and now teams that are like Indianapolis and teams like other teams that more quarterbacks basically going to drop down now to the Bears at number 9 is what I'm trying to say. And if it's Stroud or if it's Anthony Richardson, that gives Bears now more ammunition for a team that's going to want to come up and get that quarterback. So this is going to be key here in terms of what the player. If it's quarterback, then everything kind of stays so far chalk. But if it's not, this is where things get interesting and see what happens, who drops. do they get to the Bears? If a quarterback, doesn't go here, is there the run on defensive players start here? Does Arizona start going now with defensive players? Do they trade down for, with a team like Indianapolis who wants to come up and get Stroud or something like that?
It's about to happen. And there it is. CJ Stroud goes number 2 overall to the Texans.
Okay.
Quarterback out of Ohio State, 6'3", 214, 10-inch hands, did not run the 40. But here's a guy there was a lot of smoke and mirrors going around here where it was, they were going to take a pass rusher, then maybe move in and take a quarterback at 12, or they were going to, tank next year for one of the other 2 prospects. But now they go up and they get CJ Stroud, the quarterback out of Ohio State, number 2 overall. Niel, I'm going to start with you. What is it? We already talked about Stroud a little bit, but do you like him at number 2 to the Texans for a team that just got a new head coach? They're trying to rebuild this team, rebuild the culture a little bit. Is this the right pick?
I think the Texans are in a position to where they could also still make some further moves to get back up into the top 5, top 10, and take the defensive player that they also need. I like CJ Stroud. Don't love CJ Stroud. Like I was saying earlier to begin the show, disappeared against Northwestern, disappeared against Michigan, did so for about 2 straight years. But then you see him in the college football semifinal, has a massive game against Georgia, where he pretty much cements himself as, a potential big time player. I don't think he's done enough in college, me personally, to cement himself as a surefire franchise quarterback. I think he has a ton of potential. I think he generally makes smart decisions. I think he has a pretty good work ethic. If first one in, last one out, type of kid. If all the reports on him are correct, he did a really good job in team interviews. A lot of teams think that he is a consummate box checker, and maybe even more so than Bryce Young for some teams. I mean, I think that anybody who needs a quarterback in this draft is pretty much like all over the place on who they like more than the other guy. But he's a big time player for Ohio State. I don't think he's necessarily a guy that you can write off as one of those typical Ohio State quarterbacks, throughout history that have been taken really high with some pretty good expectations, with good size and athletic ability and a really strong arm that can zip it in and have good touch and accuracy and all those different types of things, but just fails at the next level. I think he's got to go ahead and prove himself. In terms of, the Houston Texans at the quarterback position, who the hell else are they going to play? Davis Mills surely wasn't the guy. And if you're not taking a potential franchise quarterback at the spot, a couple years down the road, you're probably not looking pretty good as a GM, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So I think this is a smart pick, as a safe pick, so to speak, because they need somebody to come in and run the offense and throw the football and give themselves a chance to win some football games.
Danny, we were talking about this right before the pick went, thinking maybe they were going to go with a pass rusher. But what do you think this does for the Bears now with 2 quarterbacks off at 1 and 2? Could there potentially be a team that says, oh, man, we're going to miss out on one of these guys. We need to trade up to number 3, or we need to try to trade up somewhere to get one of these guys, because now we thought Stroud might be there at 6 or 7, and now he's not. What could this potentially do for the rest of the top 10?
Right. So now this is now where Tennessee now has been rumored to wanting to go up here for a quarterback. Now the rumor was if Texans went with a defensive player, Tennessee would come up with for Stroud. We'll see if Will Levis is in play here for them. I know Indy I think Indy is pretty interested in Will Levis, and he was my number 2 rated quarterback out of his class. And I think he's a guy who's getting a rough a couple of weeks here, and teams are breaking them down or people breaking them down, because I think, they have to kind of, when you talk about this player, and I know the stats weren't the same as they were a year before, but you got to look into context. The kid was playing with a bad case of turf toe, banged up non-throwing shoulder. A lot of his weapons and offense linemen were graduated, went to the NFL. So, it's something that this kid's going to have to deal with this past season. But the thing about him is, strong arm, prototypical size, and played in an NFL offense the last 2 seasons. So he's got those concepts, those protections. He's run, in the huddle. He's been under center. He's called out all that stuff, protections, all that stuff. So, he's going to come in with a little bit of a head start over, guys like CJ Stroud and even Anthony Richardson, for example. So Bryce Young also played in the NFL system as well. So with Bill O'Brien being there at Alabama last year. So, we'll see what happens. But this is where it gets interesting for the Bears, because there's rumors that Arizona, if they stay here, they could go Paris Johnson Jr., which is the offensive tackle that we were hoping the Bears would get. So that could be a player, could be off the board there. They could go Will Anderson. They could go, with a guy like Tyree Wilson, my favorite player in this draft. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, or there could be a trade here as well. So curious to see what they do here as they're on the clock with about 2 minutes left. I see. Looks like Schefter came on the screen. I wonder if there's a trade he's reporting or what's going on. But
yeah, they got about a minute and a half left on the clock, and it was a great question there by Eric. Does the Texans taking Stroud kind of screw the Cards from being able to trade down, because maybe they were banking on the Texans taking a defensive player and then open up those talks with Tennessee, who potentially wanted C.J. Stroud, and now you got to try to go with your contingency plan. Do we just take the best defensive player, or the best player on our board, or do we try to find another trade partner? Do we still try to get Tennessee up? Is Tennessee interested in either Will Levis or Anthony Richardson? So this is going to be interesting. About a minute left on the clock. It's
been traded, that pick has been traded, and it looks like the Texans are back on the clock.
The Texans have traded back to number 3.
Yep.
So now they have. Oh my goodness. So I don't suppose you have any compensation, but there is the trade alert. Looks like that the Cardinals have traded the number 3 pick back to the Texans, or not back to the Texans, but the Texans are back there. So now, are they going Will Anderson then? Do they go
Will Anderson or Tyree Wilson? Tyree Wilson is the better fit in terms of the scheme here. He's a guy, when I watched him, I scouted him. I mean, like the way he tackles the ball carrier or the quarterback. I mean, he tackles through the ball carrier, through the quarterback. It reminded me of a Nick Bosa in terms of his physicality, the way he tackles, the way he punishes, the ball carrier. So I think, obviously Nick Bosa, he doesn't have the pass rushing skill yet of a Nick Bosa. He's still developing, but he's got the length, he's got the size, he's got the first step quickness. He's really athletic. So Tyree Wilson could be the guy here. That was the rumor that they were going to go with number 2 with Tyree Wilson. Now there's also been a late reports about some teams have him off their draft boards because of a broken foot. He broke his foot last part of the season, missed the entire, I think 5 games of the last season, and also didn't participate in any of the combine stuff or any drills because of that foot. So, could that be an issue there with Tyree Wilson? Now, the other thing is, obviously, DeMeco Ryans is the head coach now at the Houston Texans, and Anderson is a Alabama a player. DeMeco Ryans is an Alabama player. They might go get Will Anderson and make him their headline in terms of their pass rusher there. So we'll see how this goes. But definitely interesting. That this is definitely going to be a defensive player in my opinion. And I think now we'll see what they give up. But Houston making an aggressive move. I think they played it great. I mean, Nick Caserio played it great because everyone was talking about number 2 is going to be a defensive player. These quarterbacks are going to drop, and the next thing you know, they get their quarterback and they jump back in and I get the defensive player. So I think so far Nick Caserio, again, depending on what he gave up, but so far Nick Caserio is playing this draft game real nicely.
I have to imagine that number 12 pick was in that package, and then some picks in the future. But I did not expect this wild card where the Texans would be picking back to back, taking C.J. Stroud number 2, and they're about to make their pick now at number 3 as the commissioner is on the podium, ready to make the selection. I'm sure half of our people already know who the selection is, but I'm just going to wait and watch it on the TV because I am a boomer millennial. But here it comes. The pick at number 3 for the Texans is Will Anderson. Okay, so Will Anderson goes to Houston. The Texans get C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson back to back. Danny, what do you think about this move? Now, obviously, we're going to see what compensation was officially. We got some information in the chat room now at number 3 and 105 for the Texans for 12-33, a 2024 2024 third. I mean, that's. If that actually is the case, then that is some significant payment for that. But what do you think about in the short term? DeMeco Ryans trying to get hit the ground running with Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud in the same draft.
Well, obviously the quarterback obviously fits a need, and this fits a pass rushing ability. A guy on the edge to be that pass rush, consistent pass rush there. But for me would have been. Tyree Wilson would have been a nicer fit here with the Texans. So that now has me thinking about and being concerned about, is there something with these reports about his foot? Could that bone not be fully recovered yet and fully healed? Because, if you look about it, Will Anderson, to me, I know he played some 2-gap here at Alabama this past season. The previous year, he's more off the ball, like an edge player. And that's where he kind of suited him better there. His thing is he's relentless. He's a great athlete. his lower body flexibility to be able to change directions, and then just the speed he got, the first step quickness he has, and the closing burst. I think that's where he's special there in terms of the ability to get to the quarterback. So strong at the point of contact as well. So my thing was for the Bears with him was would he be a fit here in the scheme? So obviously D'Amico Ryans, who runs a 4-3 system as well, doesn't fear that, and they went ahead and got Will Anderson, the guy from Alabama.
And Niel, the compensation is quite a bit. What do you feel about the Texans going up and making the number 2 overall pick and the number 3 overall pick with CJ Stroud and Will Anderson in the same draft?
You gotta love the aggressiveness, right? The scenario that played out as we're watching it right now was something that started to be talked about earlier today, and it was played out as to where the Texans were going to go ahead and get a quarterback and a defensive end before we get to the 5th pick in the draft, whichever a position they were able to trade up and take control of. I didn't get a chance to see the compensation. My tech kind of crapped out on me for a second there, but whatever they got back for him, I would love to see, so I can comment on that if anybody has it.
Yeah, it looks like it's the Cardinals traded the number 3 and the 105 for the Texans 12, the 33 this year, a number 1 next year, and a 3rd in 2024, which is just an incredible score for maybe there wasn't a guy that they were sold on at number 3, and then all of a sudden they can move back and they get it. And so it looks like the Colts are now on the clock about 4 minutes in. Danny, it looks a little insider, spoiler alert. It looks like they are going to take Anthony Richardson. Is that true?
That's what I've come to find out.
So if Anthony Richardson does in fact go to the Indianapolis Colts, now all along we were hearing about how much they love Will Levis, and then they turn around.
Lion season, John. It's lion season. You don't believe anything people say these days.
I guess so. But if that's the case, where let's just play this out and say Anthony Richardson goes number 4 overall, that means you get a quarterback at 1, 2, and 4. And then you're left with Will Levis as the guy who could potentially go in the top half of the first round. Of course, Hendon Hooker's there as well. But as far as the top 4 that they were talking about going in the top half of the first round, who's going to scramble and try to move up? Could that potentially be a situation where at 9 the Bears could maybe cash in on someone who's panicking and saying we need to go up and get Will Levis now, or is he going to be gone before that?
Tennessee could be coming up here. Washington, I know they've said they're going to go with Sam Howell, but I just can't believe that. Tampa Bay's been scouting around, scouting these quarterbacks. And then believe it or not, although I don't think the Bears will make this trade, but Minnesota's been scouting quarterbacks as well. So, any of those teams could come up and go ahead and try and take Will Levis if he's there at number 9. Also, I know the Raiders, I haven't written them off completely in terms of maybe going for a quarterback there as well. I know Garoppolo's on a short-term contract there, kind of having sit behind Jimmy Garoppolo. Be curious to see what happens there. But Will Levis now is a guy that, remember, was potentially could have gone number 2, was going to go number 4, and now he's sitting there waiting now. So, this is how, again, lying season. It's you don't believe anything these people are telling you. They use the media, and these agents use these media people, and the teams use these media people the way they want to, is just to get things out there. So it's getting interesting now. The main thing for the Bears right now is Tyree Wilson and Jalen Carter are still out there, are still available. My main concern, guys, is Tyree Wilson's foot. If we don't have confirmation in terms of, I know some teams have said that he's off their boards because of the medical team wouldn't pass him. Is that a smokescreen? Is that just to drop his value so other teams can pass on him? I don't know. We'll find out. But if Tyree Wilson is healthy and he's there for number 9, if I am Ryan Poles, I am running to Kansas City right now. I'm making the pick personally and grabbing some barbecue on the way back.
Now I'm going to get to you in a second, but it looks like the 4th pick is about to be announced. We have an idea that it's going to be Anthony Richardson, and we can talk about that if that actually is the pick, because that was a guy that was was fluctuating on where he was going to go. Was he going to go super high? Was he going to go super low? And it looks like the pick is made. Anthony Richardson is going to Indianapolis. Just a athletic freak. Ran a 4.440, 10.5-inch hands, 32 and 3/4 inch arms, 6'4", 244. And he showed off his arm strength in his pro day. I believe he hit something on the roof whenever he was throwing around on his pro day. Niel, I'll start with you. How do you feel about Anthony Richardson going to Indianapolis?
I don't know how hitting things on the roof when you're trying to hit a receiver helps you win football games, to be honest, with you. But, I don't know, man. I love Chris Ballard. I think he's a wonderful human. I just really question the quarterback decisions the Colts have made over the course of the past handful of years, man. He is a big athletic specimen, There's a lot to like, and he has that P word attached to him, the potential word that is the biggest variable in Anthony Richardson's future right now. You kind of listed off all the stats and everything, all the attributes: 6'4" and a quarter, 244, ran a 4.440, a 1.55 split, 10.5 hands. So he's got big old hands. I like that. 32 and 3/4, arms, was explosive at 40.5 vert, 10.9, broad jump. He didn't win in college. It's really hard for me to get amped up about a guy. I am amped up about his athletic ability, 1,000%. He is a specimen as a body type, as an athlete, all those different types of things. But he didn't win in college, and it's hard to me to get behind that. It's really hard. He flashes things, right? He flashes a lot of things that you like. And as you see the highlights on the TV, yeah, he's able to move the pocket. He's able to accelerate in space. He's able to run by defenders. He can even run your ass over if he wants to. Flashes the ability to fit the ball in a tight space. He obviously has incredible arm strength, and he really showed that off at the combine, which is really nice and sexy. But couldn't win, and he couldn't complete the ball with great efficiency. And so that is the big worry for me if I'm a Colts fan right now.
Danny, does the lack of experience starting as well play into effect here, where it's like you're taking the potential and he doesn't have a lot of big time starts under his belt? And if you're going to bring him into your system, is this a guy that actually does need to sit a little bit behind a veteran before you throw him into the fire?
Yeah, the thing is, they have Gardner Minshew there. They signed him as a free agent. He's going to be the stopgap. I'm assuming because Anthony Richardson, his tape, his potential, his skill set is top of the first pick in the draft type of skill set. Strong arm, quick release. Shane Steichen is a new head coach there in Indianapolis. Obviously, he was the offensive coordinator with Jalen Hurts and the Eagles last year. So he's got himself a bigger, faster, a more athletic Jalen Hurts, if you will, now. But Hurts came in with at least some throwing, in his background, a lot of experience in terms of playing at Alabama, some big games, and then also going to Oklahoma, playing some big games as well. So, we're just saying, guys that come in with 15 or 13 starts in a career, which I believe Richardson has, that's a recipe for disaster. So, if you're the Colts, you got to have a plan for this guy. He's got to sit for at least 1 year and just kind of like take everything in and coach him up. But once you coach him up, I mean, this guy, and you unleash him, he's ready to go. I mean, there's times his tapes, it literally is like a roller coaster. There are some great moments, like you put on the game against Utah, he's making some plays with his legs, with his arms, LSU. And then there's throws where it's like, where is he throwing it? What is he looking at in terms of throwing it into coverage, overthrowing receivers, hopping it into a receiver. So, it's a lot of it is his footwork. I think they have to kind of just break him down and just kind of build him from the bottom up. He mentioned some interviews that a lot of times he went up to the line of scrimmage and he was confused in terms of what he was seeing in terms of defensive coverages and all that stuff. So, that could be something there as well. But, it was funny because they had a feature on him on TV, and they asked him if he ever heard of the West Coast offense. He had no clue what that was. So obviously this is a guy that's got pretty raw in terms of, offensive, play sets and all that stuff. So he's going to need at least a year. If you're the Colts, sit him down, maybe have a couple packages plays here and there, kind of sprinkle them in here and there, and just kind of give a little bit of a different look to defenses. But if I'm the Colts, I let him sit, let Minshew start for this first year and take his lumps.
And then that's the thing. You bring in Gardner Minshew, who's fully capable of starting some games. And if you don't think that your team is a Super Bowl contender, then maybe you don't need to throw Anthony Richardson into the fire and kind of just have him, take all the lumps without, learning the NFL system. We got about 2.5 minutes left before the Seahawks.
This is where the Jalen Carter watch starts here, guys. This is where I thought maybe if Richardson was here, he might be an option here with Seattle. Now, this is where we have to see if Jalen Carter goes here to the Seahawks. So this is where we kind of start holding our breath here. If you're looking for,
could there be a trade up here too? Because I mean, your opportunities to trade up and grab a quarterback are going to be there. I'm not going to say they'll be limited, but your opportunities are going to be fleeting if you don't do it soon, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's only
Tennessee.
Right. If you're Tennessee, if you like Will Levis, that's the thing is like we don't know if these teams like these quarterbacks or not. For me, my personal rankings, Will Levis was number 2, but obviously every team has their own system, their own draft board, and if you like Will Levis, I'm sure Seattle is willing to trade down. So we'll see what happens here, but you got to be aggressive. So if you're Tennessee, do you hold your breath and just see if he drops down a little bit further, maybe to Chicago, maybe to an Atlanta, and then you can try to and kind of pay less just to kind of jump up there and get him. So we'll see what happens here.
If the Seahawks hold on to the pick, they have a number of routes they could go. They could go Jalen Carter. They could potentially go up and get a receiver. They could maybe try to bolster the secondary a little bit. Neil, what would you, if you're Seattle, what do you do with this pick?
Well, it's been discussed and sort of leaked out that if they weren't going quarterback, they were going defensive line. And the two names were Carter and Wilson that were attached to the Seahawks at 9. If it wasn't Anthony Richardson, which I think was the only quarterback that was attached to their name, in the pre-draft process. So, both those players on the board, both are, easy takes. If I'm Seattle and I need a defensive lineman to come in and play right away and make a difference right away. So if that surely is the case, that's probably the direction they'll go.
The one other name I'll throw out there, it might be like something that might not happen, but just because of Seattle and is Christian Gonzalez. I know they struck a goal last year with Woolen in I believe in the 5th round. They like their tall, athletic corners, and I think Gonzalez would fit that, give him a little bit more of a cover corner guy. That's another name to throw out there. But yeah, I think like I said earlier, this is the Jalen Carter watch. If Carter is going to go, between here, it was between Seattle and Detroit, where a lot of mock drafts had him going. So we'll be curious to see what happens here.
And do you think, and this came up in the chat room a little while ago, I believe the Hart Foundation said, it says, does who Detroit pick, and they're obviously after Seattle, does that have any influence on the Bears, on who they pick? Or I mean, outside of just taking a player off the board, do you think that has any kind of effect on what the Bears are doing?
No, it depends. If it obviously, I mean, in terms of like, do you have to react to what Detroit did? Is that what you're?
Yeah, or if they, it's for the most part, you got to react to what Detroit did, just because they're in the division.
I think if you're the Bears, what you got to do is you got to take a look at your board. You got to take a look at your needs. And, if Detroit does go and get a Jalen Carter, for example, obviously that's going to be off their defensive line, which is going to be a bigger problem for you now. That maybe that might emphasize offensive line for the Bears and say, hey, you know what? All right, we got to get some big boys up in here. So, we'll see how that goes. But, for me, I'm getting a little excited here, a little anxious because my guy, Tyree Wilson, is dropping. I just don't know about his foot, about his medical. So that could be the little carpet that could be pulled underneath me though. But Tyree Wilson dropping to the Bears is got me excited, guys. And if that happens, I might lose my head.
There's a lot of mock drafts that got updated very frequently before the draft coverage started today that had Tyree Wilson kicking off.
Remember I said that there rumors were coming out that teams had him off their medicals because he didn't pass medicals. What if the Bears started that rumor so they could drop down to them?
It just feels like a Pete Carroll move to take a big cornerback down. It's just that I think Pete Carroll he could try to rebuild that Legion of Boom. But here comes the selection. I'm sure people already know it once again, but let's just go to the video of it. And it is Devin Witherspoon, cornerback out of Illinois. Local guy.
I got the position right, but the wrong player.
Yeah, so so they go cornerback, but they take Witherspoon out of Illinois. And actually, we actually have a scouting report on Witherspoon from Greg Gabriel. So let's see what the Seahawks are getting in Devin Witherspoon, according to Greg Gabriel.
Devin Witherspoon, he's really good. Came on real strong at 22. He's got good height, good length. He's a little on the lean side, 181 pounds, but he'll still come up and hit you. I mean, he's a pretty good hitter. He supports the run well. Can play man, he can play off, play zone, all of them equally well. Very good suddenness, slow on his pedals, smooth turn. He reacts very, very well to the ball in the air, whether he's coming back to the ball or with his back to the ball. He had 3 picks this year. I think he only had 1 or maybe none last year. So that was a concern for me going in, and he had that pick in the opening game. This guy's the only concern that you may have with this guy going forward is at 181, he might be a little bit light in the ass.
So there you go. That's Greg Gabriel's scouting report on Devin Witherspoon. Danny, I'll start with you. What do you think about this pick with the Seahawks going cornerback, not just for the player, but what it does for the rest of the draft?
Yeah, I mean, this was my top corner on the board. I love Devin Witherspoon. I think he would have been an ideal fit for the Bears in terms of their scheme. I mean, Pete Carroll plays a little bit off man coverage there on defense as well. So, I mean, I think that's a nice fit there for them as well. Again, they had Tyreek Woolen last year in the 5th round. They go and get Witherspoon now. The one thing about him, what Greg said, I concur everything Greg said. The only concern about him is the size. He's only 181 pounds, only ran a 4.45 40, as opposed to, so the speed could have been something there in terms of, being in phase downfield with a receiver. But talk about guy who's got a dog in him, some dog in him. And this guy has an attitude, will come down, will strike you, has no fear. He'll get burned for a big play, will come back the next play, have, that short-term amnesia and just come back and make a play. So I love Devin Witherspoon. I loved him watching him and playing during the season at Illinois. So yeah, kudos to the Seahawks there for getting Witherspoon, another playmaking corner in their defensive secondary.
So, Neil, the cornerback goes off the board going to Seattle. What do you think this does as far as shaking out for the Bears at number 9? Because you haven't – Jalen Carter's still out there. Edge rusher's still out there. Paris Johnson's still out there. Is this shaping up pretty well for the Chicago Bears so far?
Love the way this is shaping up. Because you think about it, the defensive lineman was talked about as a potential go of it for Seattle at 5. Defensive lineman was also talked about as a go at 6 for Detroit. And after that, you have the Raiders, you have the Falcons, neither of which were talked about really taking a defensive player. And so Jalen Carter and Tyree Wilson, either of those two could potentially be available at 9. You had the I can't remember if it was Atlanta and Vegas or Atlanta or Vegas that were attached to Paris Johnson at 7 or 8. So, but I mean, when you look at it this way, you got 3 players that the Bears have been attached to that we have talked about in previous Draft on Tap versions of the show that we would love to see the Bears go ahead and take at 9. You still have Broderick Jones out there as well as a 4th player that we have talked about. We have loved to see the Bears take at 9. I love the way this is shaping out right now. The players are falling into our laps, and we may have our pick of it once the Bears get on the clock.
Going into the Lions pick, Danny, who do you want them to not pick? Who do you want the Bears to not have to face whenever they pick?
Jalen Carter or Tyree Wilson, either one of those two guys, because obviously the offensive line is still a work in progress. So, but look, everybody in the chat saying that Arizona traded back up with Detroit for the pick. So that's probably going to be for Tyree Wilson is my thinking here. We'll see. Although they were rumored to be heavily involved on Paris Johnson as well. So we'll see.
Arizona who I guess inherited that number 12 pick would be moving back down to number 6 with probably some of the draft capital they got from Houston, and they'd be able to probably still get the guy that they really wanted, and they just were able to get some draft capital in the meantime. So in reality, they just moved from 3 to 6 and picked up some extra picks in the meantime. So let's see where they're going to go. The Paris Johnson makes a lot of sense. That they want to keep Kyler Murray upright, obviously coming off an injury. That would make a lot of sense. But they do have some options there. They could potentially get Tyree Wilson.
They lost J.J. Watt. So defensive line, Tyree Wilson can be there. Now, also again, in the new head coach was defensive coordinator with the Eagles. So a player like Nolan Smith, the super athletic, freaky linebacker, could be in play there as well. So, but it looks like we may have a pick in right now. So, and it's not Nolan Smith.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at the television version, so I'm going things like an ancient person. So the second that you see who it is, then we'll go with it. It looks like it is going to be It is going to be Paris Johnson. Paris Johnson is going to be. You never feel so old whenever you're watching TV and you realize that everybody already knows everything. It's just like I'm living in ancient Greece here. So Paris Johnson, before it is announced, is going to go to the Arizona Cardinals. A guy that a lot of Bears fans were hoping would fall to them at number 9, but he's just a big 6'6", 313, 9.5-inch hands, 36.5-inch arms. Just an all-around good player that would have, is probably going to be a mainstay for a team for the next, they're hoping 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Niel, I'll start with you. You like this pick for the Cardinals?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would have been, I think, both me and Danny's top pick for the Chicago Bears at the tackle position. The thing you'll love most about Paris Johnson is that he's versatile. He has a lot of play history at multiple positions across the offensive line. Played a guard, played a tackle, started this past season, obviously a tackle. And, he would have been a prime suspect to bring in if, in fact, Poles just wanted to go ahead and figure out the best bodies to put at left and right tackle. Paris Johnson would give you that flexibility. So, I mean, great pick for the Arizona Cardinals. You love his athletic ability, has absurd length, physical kid, and kind of one of those guys where all his best football is ahead of him. He's only been playing tackle for a very short period of time. He still has some room to develop on an already very talented frame and position specific skill set. So, big time pickup for these guys.
Danny, this is the first guy that, was really, in the crosshairs for a lot of Bears fans. As far as how this plays out now, there's still plenty of solid players out there for the Bears to pick at 9. Where do you still look at offensive line? Do you look at Skoronski maybe if it goes to number 9, or what are you looking at?
No, right. He was my top guy. Paris Johnson was my top tackle, top offensive lineman. If he was the only one that I wanted at number 9. Skoronski is going to be a guard for me, so he's not for me. The value is not there at number 9. I know I've heard some people say Darnell Wright. Darnell Wright is a pure right tackle. He'll fill a need, but he's a guy that for me, he's a good player, but he's not a Paris Johnson. He's in terms of lateral agility, he's not the greatest. He's more of a straight line athlete, sub 34-inch arms. Again, a guy that's played right tackle, right guard, and left tackle in the SEC. He's a mean SOB, though. Darnell Wright is a mean SOB. He will bury guys. He will create movement at the line of scrimmage. So, in terms of the run game, he's going to help you out there. But he wasn't the tackle prospect that Paris Johnson is. So Niel touched on the versatility of Paris Johnson, a guy who played left tackle this past season, played right guard last year. There's a guy I thought would come in and be able to plug and play at right tackle. The only thing, again, Niel hit it too, this guy is still developing. He still needs to get stronger in terms of his core strength. There, a lot of times you see him kind of get bullied back into the quarterback. The first half against Georgia and that game, he was getting bullied back into CJ Stroud, and that's why Stroud had to run away a lot of times. So he got better in the second half of that Georgia game. So again, developing kid, has been trained since he was 15 years old with Willie Anderson, the former Bengal left tackle. So he's got a good kid. He's already got a foundation going and all that stuff. So he's definitely a guy that I definitely would have liked the number 9. But now the way it's looking, I'm looking Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson. The only thing is will the Raiders or the Falcons ruin that dream for me? So we'll see what happens here.
Let's go because you were out on Skoronski at number 9. I want to go to a snippet we have of ESPN's Jordan Reed on why Peter Skoronski makes sense for the Bears. So let's talk a little bit about that, and then after we can react to that video after we see it.
We had this same debate with a former Northwestern tackle that went on to have a pretty good career when he was healthy, and Rashawn Slater. There was a lot of different questions about him, and their measurables were very similar. Now, I think this is a huge dilemma for the Bears just because Braxton Jones was a huge surprise for them last year and how well he played. I'm a big proponent of not mixing and matching and moving around offensive linemen just because it's like learning a new position. If you were to flip Braxton Jones from left tackle to right tackle and then you select a rookie and you move them to that left tackle spot, I think you're creating 2 holes in one decision. Why not? Let's leave Braxton Jones where he is. Let's take one of these natural right tackles and plug him to a position that he's already naturally played with in college. That's why somebody like a Darnell Wright makes a lot of sense out of Tennessee. Skoronski makes a lot of sense just because he's played all positions up front. He actually originally came to Northwestern as a center. So with Skoronski, he could play all 5 positions up front.
So there's some analysis there on some of the linemen. Before we get into that, just want to say hi to Berlismo. Appreciate your well wishes. I'm playing hurt today, but we're getting through it. Let's go to Danny. He had some thoughts on Skoronski about some of the mobility there. What do you, as far as the flexibility there? What are your thoughts on some of that?
Yeah, in terms of flexibility, he can come in, he can, play center, he can play left guard, he can play, in a pinch, he can play left tackle. But for me, the thing with Rashawn Slater had 33 something inch arms. I don't know the exact number, but I know they were 33. They were longer than Skoronski. Skoronski's are less than 33. They're sub 33 inch arm length. So he's a guy, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody out there in the chat, but I don't think there is a tackle right now in the NFL playing with sub 32 inch arms in terms of starters. So again, he's a guy that can come in for me and be a plug and play left guard and be a damn good left guard. There's no shame in that. Zach Martin was a pretty good left tackle in Notre Dame, brought him in. Same thing, doesn't have the arm length, the necessary, measurables for tackle, and they put him inside, and he's an all-pro left guard. So, that we've seen this happen in the past. And the fact that I'm going to bring someone that doesn't fit the ideal mold, that I don't have an NFL starting tackle currently playing with sub 33 inch arms. That's something that again, we've been an outlier, kind of like talk about Bryce Young early on, right? So, especially if a Paris Johnson was available, or even if a Jones kid, Broderick Jones from Georgia would be available, I think I would have gone ahead with those guys before Skoronski. But we'll see what happens. But as of right now, right now the guy Jalen Carter and Tyree Wilson are the guys I'm really keeping an eye on here.
Neil, the Raiders are about to pick. They're about 3 minutes away from being off the clock. This could shake out a lot for what happens with the Bears in a couple of picks. Jalen Carter's still there. They could go Skoronski. Their defense was a mess as well. So what do you think they go with at this pick, and what do you hope they go with in this pick for the Bears' sake?
Well, just to piggyback off of what Danny was saying about the arm length on Skoronski, I believe the record for the shortest arm length taken by a tackle in the NFL draft was Joe Thomas, who has 33 an inch and an eighth longer arms than Peter Skoronski. I think it was like 33 and 5/8. It might have been 33 and 3/8, 35, somewhere like 33 and a half in that kind of range. And so every other kid that has played tackle virtually in the NFL draft has been taken under 33 arms has been moved to guard if they came in as a tackle. And so that's the thing about that, guys, is that it sounds minuscule, only that 1 inch, but it does make a difference in the grand scheme of things. And I believe the Raiders pick is in.
Raiders pick is in. We're going to see. We're going to wait and hope. Maybe we'll get the alert before I get it here on the television. But this could really impact what the Bears do, and then obviously the Falcons are going to be picking after that. So we'll see who they go with. Danny, I saw your face of disgust. What does that mean?
Tyree Wilson
going off the board. Ah, man, your boy goes off a couple picks beforehand. They need it. If you're the Raiders, they certainly need it. So they get the edge rusher out of Texas Tech, 22 years old, 271. Just the foot was concerning, but Danny, I know you love this guy, so go on and say why the Raiders got a good pick here.
Yeah, this guy is the tailor-made defensive end. 36, 35, almost 36 inch arm length, quick first step, highly athletic. Again, the guy's physical. I mentioned earlier, when he tackles through the ball carrier. He punishes quarterbacks, and he punishes ball carriers when he tackles them. Highly athletic. They had him standing up at a 2-point stance at Texas Tech. There was one play where I was watching him versus Kansas State, and Deuce Vaughn, who's a diminutive small running back, came out of the backfield and ran a wheel route, and then no one picked him up. And then Tyree Wilson just noticed that, turns and chucks and gets in phase with a kid like Deuce Vaughn. So that shows you the type of speed, the type of athletic ability he's got there in that almost 6'6" frame there. So would have loved this kid here to be the start, the foundation for the Bears defensive line. So I knew it was going to be hard for him to kind of get down there without the Bears trading up. So fortunately he's gone. So now next thing we have to look for is either see if Jalen Carter makes it to the Bears. So, and that's the curious thing is if Jalen Carter is to the Bears and they pass him up, that tells us that they were not comfortable with Carter in terms of the time they spent with him those 2 days and his character and all that stuff. So it's gonna be very curious to see what happens here. But it's getting exciting.
Okay, let's talk about it since everyone else in the chat is talking about it, and we got to address that potentially, Bijan Robinson was a guy who was linked to the Falcons. That could potentially be an offensive weapon to bring in to see if Desmond Ridder can actually play, and if not, then they go and they get a quarterback next year. But there's plenty of talk in our fan chat room here about wanting Bijan Robinson on the Bears, a running back at number 9. So. Neil, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on potentially taking Bijan Robinson at number 9?
Man, almost died right there, guys. I'm okay, though. Almost died.
Glad.
Man, there's a lot to love about Bijan Robinson. Like I was saying at the beginning of the show, Bijan is one of those dudes that I've been following ever since he was in high school, came out of South Point Catholic in Arizona, signed with Texas, and immediately made his presence felt in Austin for the Longhorns there. Told people right away, I was like, this kid is going to be one of the most sought after kids in the NFL draft. And I even said in high school, this kid's going to be one of the most sought after kids going into college. He's a little bit of a Swiss Army knife type of dude in the sense that you can utilize him in the backfield as ball carrier. You can send him out of the backfield in the passing game. You can line him up in the slot. He does a lot of really, creative things for you as an offensive coordinator. Allows you to be kind of tricky a little bit with your scheme and very multiple. It's just, man, you'd love to have the kid, but you don't have the other pieces set up yet, though, right? It's like saying, okay, well, the house looks really nice, from the first floor up, but the foundation's kind of leaky and cracky. That's kind of what it's like right now with saying, like, yeah, let's go ahead and get a receiver, let's get a corner, let's get a tailback, let's get Bijan Robinson, let's get a complimentary piece to in the tight end room. You got to have the foundation set, man. Otherwise, that house is going to crumble. So that's why we're so hard right now on the Bears in terms of making sure we get the offensive line, defensive line situated before we go ahead and get those sexy pieces on the outside, those sexy pieces in the backfield. Because if those sexy pieces are nice and everything, they make it look good, but it's not going to help us win games if we can't keep the defenders off the quarterback and if we can't get to the other team's quarterback. That's not going to help us win. That's not how you build a football team that way, guys.
What do you think, Danny? Would that be more of a luxury pick, or is this a guy that could change the offense around?
No, I think it'd be more of a luxury pick. I mean, if your team, I've said this before, if your team is horrible in the trenches, your team sucks. I don't care who you have. If you have Randy Moss in his prime on outside and you have Emmitt Smith in the backfield, if your team cannot block or cannot stop the run, your team sucks. So you got to build a team from the trenches, and that's a tried and true method here that a lot of teams are that's how they're building their teams. I mean, the Eagles, for example, team went to the Super Bowl last year. They always draft offensive, defensive linemen. Andy Reid took that same philosophy over to KC. They always draft offensive, defensive linemen first. They build those trenches, and then you start going out, and now you go get your if you have your quarterback, obviously great. Then you go get your receivers and you get your running backs and all that stuff. And again, guys, you won't find a Bijan Robinson in second or third or day 3 of this draft. I'm not saying that, but you're going to be able to find a running back that's going to come in and be able to at least give you something in terms of, with that competition with Deontay Foreman and Khalil Herbert and all that stuff. So, it's not a dying need right now where you need a running back. I know it's a great, he's my top running back in this draft. I mean, he's a top 10 to top 15 player in this draft. So, he's a guy that's going to, come in, he'll help you for sure. But again, if you don't have a stable, solid offensive line, and you have all these holes on defense, you pretty much did nothing in free agency in terms of the defensive line. So I don't know what you're going to do if a guy like Jalen Carter, again, assuming everything in terms of what they did, their investigations, they're good with, comfortable with it. A guy like Jalen Carter is in there available to you possibly, and you're going to bypass him for a running back or even worse, a corner, for example. That would just drive me nuts.
And that's what I was going to ask. I'm just going to think that Carter is going to be available. Let's just say that. Is that the pick for both of you at that point?
Well, I mean,
yes.
I was going to first say I agree with Tooch. I mean, if it's Bijan Robinson, yeah, the city of Chicago is going to love this kid, and they're going to forget about it. Bijan just went to the Falcons. They're going to worship him and everything else. But
he's going to the Falcons.
Oh, well, there we go.
Yeah. So the pick is in. It looks like Bijan Robinson is going to go to the Falcons.
So now if you're Ryan Poles, you have Jalen Carter sitting there. This will tell us how they feel about Jalen Carter. If they bypass Jalen Carter for a cornerback like a Christian Gonzalez, that tells me that at least I hope that it's because they have some concerns in terms of his character. But I mean, you just do not pass up a player like Jalen Carter if you're comfortable with his background for a cornerback. So I think that's where it's going to fall here. Obviously, Broderick Jones is there, down on right still, but I think those are guys you can probably trade down and get those guys. So I think it's either Jalen Carter or Christian Gonzalez if they stay at this pick. So we'll see what happens now.
Yeah, let's just say they do stay with this pick. They can't find a trade partner. They can't get Tennessee to move up, or they can't find anyone else to bite to come up and maybe take Will Levis. If it's not Jalen Carter, which is what we've been talking about, Danny, you say it could be Gonzalez, but Neil, who else could it be?
Broderick Jones is another dude out there that I love. Another tackle prospect that can come in and give Ryan Poles the flexibility to, like we were talking about Paris Johnson, give him the flexibility to figure out who works out best at what position at the tackle spots. Between Braxton and Broderick, you're going to have the Jones brothers at the corners and just figure it out from there, man. The thing about Broderick is that he's big, he's long, he's physical, he's absurdly athletic. He's in space, he can reach the second level, highly functional at all levels, and could probably also easily play the right side as well. So that would be a guy that I would love to see the Bears take on in place of Paris Johnson. Would love to see them take Broderick. If they trade back, I think it'd be interesting what we could possibly see them doing towards the tail end of the first round. The other player that I would not put it past and would take at 9, that at least if I'm the GM, would have put past myself to take at 9, would be Will McDonald. If you were hell bent on taking a Tyree Wilson at 9 and he's not there at 9, Will McDonald's number 2 on my board in terms of the edge rusher position goes.
Yep.
He's another dude that's big and long and absurdly athletic and explosive that could change the game in terms of pass rush.
Yeah, the only thing with Will McDonald is his size. He's I think I was 245 at his pro day. That's the only concern you have about Will McDonald. Everything else, in terms of bend, in terms of length, in terms of first up quickness, he is what you want in terms of an edge rusher.
So if it's an option, would either one of you look to trade back at this point, given what the options are or what you could potentially do? Would that be your first to say, let's trade back, or would you want to make the pick here?
If you're not comfortable with Jalen Carter and you say, you know what, we're not taking him because we don't trust him, then yeah, I mean, the first option would be to trade back or like Neil said, go with a guy like Will McDonald. Again, a lot of people are going to say that's a reach because, he was projected in the mocks to go late first round, early second round. But you know what? This draft is all over the board. Their board is going to look different than other people's boards. And so, if you go with a guy like Will McDonald, it was probably the next best pass rusher. Because Nolan Smith is an athletic freak in terms of a linebacker, but he's not a fit in this scheme. He's 239 pounds. He's more of an off-ball linebacker, a guy that can be utilized in multiple different ways and be a defensive weapon. So I don't think he's a fit for the Bears in this scheme. Nolan Smith from Georgia, that is. So, for me, if it's not Jalen Carter, you're not comfortable with a guy. Just imagine, guys, if you get Jalen Carter here, you traded back, got the stuff you got from Carolina, and got the guy that you're potentially going to look at to get the first overall pick in the draft anyway. You get possibly the best player in the draft available,
Well, it looks like we got some chatter in the chat room that the Bears are trying to trade with the Eagles, and that the Eagles could potentially be swapping, because right now the Eagles are sitting at number 10, and that means the Bears would move back to number 9, and we'll see what the compensation could potentially be.
Yeah, it's a 4th round pick.
So they picked up an extra 4th round pick by moving back one spot.
Right. So they know. So they, being Ryan Poles, knows who the Eagles are coming up to get. Is it Jalen Carter? I don't know. Or is it Nolan Smith? Is it, because they're, Peter Skoronski, they're going to go trenches most likely. The Eagles, that is. So
the Bears are really good at getting 4th round picks out of the Eagles.
Would love to get something better than a 4th round pick with that thing right there. I mean,
and you move back one spot.
But that's the thing. It's if you move back one spot and say, for example, you're going to get Jalen Carter, but Eagles are not going to get Jalen Carter. You get a 4th round pick, move back one spot. Why not? So that's the thing. It's, we'll see what they want. Unless the Eagles want Jalen Carter, Bears are like, we're not going to get Jalen Carter. We're going to get, Christian Gonzalez or Skoronski or whoever. And we'll get a 4th round pick and move back one spot. No big deal.
Wait a minute.
So
I don't know what ESPN is doing, but they have us at both 9 and 10 right now.
I'm sure that there's just some finalizing there
Yeah,
that
it
needs
has
to be
to be,
done with something, but but
But there's no way we just fleeced the Eagles and got 2 top 10 picks.
no, I don't see that being the
There it
case.
is. There it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
It
So
is changed.
the
And
Eagles,
it's
already.
Jalen Carter to the Eagles.
so the Eagles go and they move up one spot, which Danny, to your point, says the Bears were out on Jalen Carter.
Right.
They weren't going to draft him because you don't move back knowing who the Eagles are probably going to take,
Right.
and then just saying no, we were all in on Jalen Carter, but we really want that 4th round pick so you can have him. So they were out on him to the beginning of this draft. So we'll see what actually happens. So now,
if I'm the Bears now, and sorry to cut you off, I'm the
No.
Bears now. Anybody want Will Levis? Anybody want to come out and get Will Levis? Because
Right,
I'm going back
It's
down
more
to
picks, man.
get us more picks. Get us more picks. So that's what I'm hoping for now. I'd rather do that than actually make a pick here.
yeah, because if they get, and there's just here's the measurables on Carter's 22, 6'3", 314. A lot of people saying he's the top talent in the draft. Obviously, some off-field issues and some not the most impressive pro day. So it looks like he's going to go to the Eagles, and the Bears trade down. They pick up a 4th round pick. They move down one spot. So let's talk about that. Let's say they can't find a trade partner who wants to come up and maybe take Will Levis. Who's the best pick here? Who's the best fit at number 10 with who's still available?
Well, just looking at the board right now, the best player available is Christian Gonzalez, the corner out of Oregon. But if you're Ryan Poles, I'd be saying, hey, I'm still open for business. Who wants Will Levis? Anybody? Tennessee? Washington? Tampa Bay. You guys want to come up and get this kid? So, but the one thing that this tells me is that I'm assuming that he would know, Ryan Poles would know, although Ryan Poles hasn't had a great, deal of success in terms of his trade. So we'll see how this goes. But I'm assuming he knows that who Harry Roseman and Eagles were coming up to get, and that he was out on Jalen Carter, and that, might as well just go ahead and let them take Jalen Carter, and then you'll get an extra 4th round pick out of it. So that's what assumption is. So that's going to be probably the first, second question that Ryan Poles gets in his after the press conference tonight. So, we'll see. It sucks that you don't get, the rich get richer, right? You gave the Eagles the probably the best player in the draft potentially. So, and he goes to a team that's got Jordan Davis from last year. It's got Nakobe Dean. It's got a bunch of Georgia Bulldogs. So guys that are going to keep him in line there. Former teammates, and he's got veteran leadership there. And that might have been just something that could have hurt the Bears, where they just feel like, we don't have the veterans that could put this guy in check. He might come here and just not be someone that someone can control. So, but that, to me, if that's the case, that tells me that you don't have that much you don't rely that much on your coaching staff to kind of put the players in check and all that stuff. So it's just disappointing that Jalen Carter was there for the Bears and they passed him up. So curious to see what Ryan Poles says after the draft.
Well, looking at
Breaking
some of the
news
potential,
I'm hearing is that the Eagles ownership is in progress of changing the team name from Eagles to Bulldogs. So that's what we have going on.
Well, let's look at. Let's talk about some potential trade partners that the Bears could, maybe deal for that Will Levis pick if somebody wanted to move up to get him. You talked about the Commanders. You talked about the Titans are right behind you, so I doubt that they're going to try to. But maybe that's the leverage that you play. Maybe the Buccaneers want to come up. Right. There still are some opportunities there to trade that pick. There'll be but how far do you want to go back then? Do you want to go the whole way back to 19 where I think the Buccaneers are picking, or how far are you willing to go back in the first round?
For me, the hardest, the meat of this draft is in the 20s through probably the 60s or something like that. So that's where you get a lot of these players. And again, we talked about a guy like Will McDonald. You drop back to 19, that'd be a nice spot to get Will McDonald. You and I were talking about taking him at number 9. Because he's that type of impact player that, even though he doesn't fit the quote unquote elite profile, but he's a guy that will bring you instant pass rush ability off the edge. So in terms of defensive tackle, after Jalen Carter, the drop is pretty steep. So I think defensive tackle would be something you would probably not look at here in the first round. To probably be more of a second round area. It would have to be offensive line, whether it's a guy like Darnell Wright. Now, if you go down to 19, for example, I think Wright would be there. Wright might be the pick at number 10. We don't know yet. So, again, these boards are all over the place. So we'll see how it comes out. But Yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's disappointing that they didn't get Jalen Carter when they had an opportunity to get him. But again, the assumption is that they had their reasons why. And again, they spent 2 days with Jalen Carter here. They spent time with him at the combine and at his pro day. So it's not like they didn't go ahead and invest time and get to know this kid. So, if you pass him up, and I'm assuming they knew the Eagles are coming up for Jalen Carter, it'll be horrible if Ryan Poles didn't think that they were coming up for Jalen Carter, and then they pulled the wool over them for a 4th round pick and they got Jalen Carter. That would be just.
So it looks like, and the rumors are coming out already, that the Bears are going to go with Darnell Wright at number 10.
Would love
they would
that.
be drafted. And so, much to the joy of some of the people in the chat room, and so let's just say, for intensive purposes, we're not going to make it solidified yet, but let's just say the Chicago Bears take Darnell Wright, offensive tackle out of Tennessee, a 21-year-old who's 6'5", 333 pounds. He's got 33 and 3/4 inch arms, 9-inch hands. I believe a 5 second 40 time. Guys, if Darnell Wright is the pick, what do you think?
Yeah, in terms of for me, he wasn't an ideal fit. He's a guy, again, doesn't have the length I look for in arm length, but it's okay. Doesn't have the lateral agility that I look for in my offensive tackles. He is a solid athlete in terms of a straight line athlete. He can get out in space, and he can go out and he can bury guys. And that's the one thing about him is he's a people mover. He's a guy that will move bodies, will help reset the line of scrimmage. So he definitely helps you in the run game. He's a right tackle. He's a plug and play right tackle. He's been a 3-year starter at Tennessee's started at left tackle, started at right guard, and started at right tackle. So we'll see. For me, speed kind of stressed him out on the edge. So I know he potentially could be a right guard eventually. But again, he's a guy that I knew that they liked because of the meanness he had of him, the nasty streak, the ability to finish his blocks, and the fact that he's a starting right tackle day one for for the Bears. So it's a natural fit there. And he's a guy that I thought they had a liking for at number 9. They probably were going to take him number 9, and then just saw the fact that the Eagles wanted to give him a 4th round pick to move up one spot and to secure Jalen Carter, and then they just took him here at number 9 here. So
Neil,
Darnell was a kid I had behind Broderick. As my number 3 offensive tackle in this class. I had behind Broderick.
Yep.
What's that?
So
yeah, he was behind them. He was my number 3 as well, because of the fact that Broderick was a more athletic left tackle prospect. But for me, he was number 3 behind Broderick too.
So Danny, you talked about him being the start. You talked about him being the plug and play starter at right tackle. Neil, is that where you see him coming in and just starting at right tackle automatically?
Yeah, 100%. That's where he played at Tennessee. That's where he excelled at Tennessee. He's a massive body dude at, almost 6'3.5", 333 pounds. Moves extremely well for as big as he is. He's like we're saying, an immediate plug and play, type of guy. He's got like really impressive length and bend, again, for that size. Very strong and powerful. He is a guy that can function at the second level. He's not as fluid of a guy as you would like to see in like a Broderick Jones or a Paris Johnson, but he can operate at the second level. He can redirect, pretty fluidly and easily. He's got really heavy hands. And again, he's violent, he's mean, he's nasty. And we saw all this stuff in Mobile during the Senior Bowl. He performed extremely well. He was the offensive line MVP for his particular team. And again, these MVP awards are determined by their peers. And so everybody on that side of the Senior Bowl squads thought that kid performed well enough, and he was the absolute alpha stud of that offensive line group. The best of the best seniors. Other the fact that he's an older guy, other the fact that he's experienced, he has a ton of play history. He's a really impressive kid to me. Again, I had him behind Paris and Broderick only because those other 2 dudes are so much more athletic. But in terms of what this kid brings in terms of tenacity, mean streak, a tone setter type of guy, 333 pounds that can operate at the second level, looking to put you in the ground every time. I absolutely love this pick. He's my type of offensive tackle, regardless of what scheme you run, because he's athletic enough to get it done. He's big enough to get it done. He's mean and nasty enough to get it done. Bring him. Let's start him right tackle right away. I'm amped up personally.
Danny, now let's talk about the pick isn't even official yet, but we're assuming he is the pick for all intents and purposes. He is the pick. What does this do for the Bears' strategy moving forward? You go and you solidify the right side, of your offensive line. Obviously, you got to go after something on the D line at some point, correct?
I mean, you'd have to. I mean, you have no defensive lineman whatsoever to speak of right now. I mean, you signed Darnell Walker, or DeMarcus Walker. He's a journeyman, if you will, a guy who could play some right or left defensive end for you. You signed Andrew Billings, another journeyman stopgap. Just a space eater, basically. You don't have. You only had, I believe, it was 30 sacks last year, which is dead last in the NFL. And I believe, if I'm correct if I'm wrong, but I think only 10 came from the defensive line. So that was just horrible. And you haven't done anything right now. So, you gave an extra 4th round pick. We'll see if he gets aggressive. If someone drops down to tail half of that first round, maybe a edge rusher like a Will McDonald or, Kenu Benson, the defensive tackle from Wisconsin, is a guy that's been getting some first round buzz as well, tail end. So we'll see if they move back up into the first round and get a defensive tackle. But yeah, I mean, from now on, I would think that this has to be a predominantly, defensive front kind of a draft, because I think you've solidified obviously right tackle with this pick here. You got Nate Davis, at right guard. You're gonna have some people movers there on the right side, so that's a nice plus there for your offense. If you do move white-haired center, now you have that hole at left guard, whether it's going to be Tevin Jenkins or Jatir Carter, a guy they picked up last year they like a lot. We'll see what happens there, but solidifying the offensive line would be a nice move. Obviously with Paris Johnson gone, Broderick Jones would have been my next guy on my board, but I know why they didn't go Broderick Jones, because of the fact that he's only had 19 starts in his career, so he's a little bit still developing, not there yet in terms of a plug and play player. Would need some more time to develop. Plus, he's only been on the left side. He hasn't any right side experience. So with Darnell Wright, he's a guy that can, again, right tackle in the SEC. Plug and play player. You come in day one, he's probably going to be a right tackle.
So as TV catches up to the rest of us, Darnell Wright is the pick for the Chicago Bears.
It wasn't a corner. At least it was not a cornerback. That's all I can say.
Yeah. I was going to say, we talked about offensive line and defensive line, and Danny, you don't have to go off the deep end here for them taking a cornerback. But now let's talk about what that means. And we kind of just touched on it there, but what the strategy for the Bears is for the rest of this draft. And before we do that, I do want to go back to a video that Greg Gabriel made about the Bears defensive line scheme and the type of players that they need. So as we move past the first round pick, let's talk about what the Bears are going to have to do later on in this draft.
It's a one gap scheme. You're lined up in a gap. So you don't have a true nose tackle. The nose is really a one technique, and the one gap is the gap between the center and the guard. Then your key player is the 3 technique, and he's in the gap between the guard and the tackle. The ends are usually outside the tackles, so they could be in a 7 technique, or it could be a 6 or a 7 technique, but a 5 technique would be head up on the tackle. So you're playing the game a lot differently. What you're looking for is players who can get off the ball quickly, can penetrate and disrupt in the run game, and of course, with the inside guys, create an interior pass rush. Not necessarily have to be great sackers, but they've got to put pressure on the quarterback, try to flush the quarterback, get him out of the pocket, and that, of course, helps the edge guy.
Well, there you have it, fellas. Now the Bears, they have a little bit of a gap before their next pick. So obviously they're not going to get, unless they were to trade back into the first round for whatever reason, which would be very exciting. But let's just say they wait until their next pick in the second round. Let's start turning the pages a little bit. Who could be available that could make an impact as one of those second round picks on the defensive line?
Well, for me, I mean, obviously we'll have to see how it falls out. But a guy mentioned Keanu Benson from defensive tackle from Wisconsin. a big run stuffing defensive tackle at Wisconsin. He was, I think, utilized in a more of a 2-gap system. I think he's a guy that showed some potential to be able to be a gap penetrator. It could potentially give you some more pass rush than what he showed at Wisconsin. So Benton is a guy that, but he was getting some late first round buzz. So in terms of guys off the edge, if Will McDonald makes it, that would be a guy I would love. We talked about Niel. I talked about him. Felix Nduki Uzuma is another guy off the edge, a little bit undersized tweener. But a guy that gives you that bend, the first step quickness, the ability to use his hands to be able to get back in the backfield. He's a guy that could be available with that 53rd pick. A guy that a lot of people are talking about in terms of first round stuff, but maybe a Kalijah Kancey could be available there. That arm length could drop him there. And for me, Kancey in the first round would be too high of a value. His value wouldn't be there for me because of the arm length. But if he drops in the second round, especially, I think you have pick 53 and 61, if I'm not mistaken. If he's there at 61, I think he's a nice scheme fit. He's a guy you can plug and play as well, give you some pressure in terms of being able to generate some pressure up front from a defensive tackle position at 3 technique. Keon White is a guy that is another developmental player. A guy was a tight end at Old Dominion, came to Georgia Tech, had a breakout year last year. I believe that's 7 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. So I think he's a guy that's still developing, but I think he's a guy who was an edge at Georgia Tech. But for me, I kick him inside. I make him a defensive tackle for me. Guys like there's a guy I love, which is Tuli Tuipulotu. He's a guy from USC, but I think his problem is he's a tweener. He's a guy at 266. Is what a weight came in at, and some teams are not sure if he's an edge. Do you make him lose weight and make him like a 9 technique defensive end, or do you make him a possible drop and make him bigger, get him inside at 3 technique? That's where I see him at 3 technique. I mean, you put on his tape, he's all over the football field. He had 22 tackles for loss last year, so he's that guy and he's got NFL bloodlines. So I love his motor. I love the way he plays. Mozzie Smith is a guy from Michigan. Another guy that's just a mean, run blocking guy in Michigan, a guy that was hard to move, a guy can control that that offensive line and not get pushed back, but also a guy that did show when he was given the opportunity to get upfield and make some hay there in terms of getting some and giving some pass rush as well. So number of names. We've got to see how this first round goes, but I think because a lot of these guys are going to fall. Or guys got to go right now. I think there might be a time where if they see they're bored and the guys that they're targeting kind of come off, because I'm sure they have a bucket of maybe 7 or 8 players or whatever number is, and you see those guys being chopped off at tail end of the first round. Now you're going to see them maybe try and effort to come back in that bottom of that first round. I heard that the Chiefs are looking to trade out the first round. They're at the pick 31, so it'll be interesting to see. Obviously Poles with his connections with KC, maybe there's a trade there they can do to get back into the bottom half of the first round, but. The one thing that so far we've seen with Ryan Poles, he likes his volunteers. He got Velus Jones last year in the 3rd round, and you got Donald Wright, and he likes SEC players. So that's also a good thing.
Neil, who doesn't love volunteers? They're inexpensive.
Neil, the Bears pick at 53 and 61 in the second round. Are you content staying there, or do you want to make an aggressive move to get back up?
Would love to make an aggressive move to figure out a way to get up into the top end of round 2, because the way you look at it, if Will McDonald is a guy that you're sold on, you'll have to figure out a way to go ahead and get him, right? And I think if you look at a couple other guys that Danny didn't mention, the Derek Hall kid out of Auburn and the Adebawore kid out of Northwestern are 2 kids that either on the edge or in Adebayore's specific situation, a guy that you would move inside the 3 technique. Those are also 2 guys that fit extremely well. Will those guys be there at 53 or in the 60s? Who knows? But those are 3 more guys in addition to all the guys that Danny just rattled off that would be good fits for the Bears. And I think we've seen so far in this first round the Bears miss out on a couple guys that we would really love to have now. Whether our opinions are the same opinions that they have inside of Hallis Hall, who knows? But just from the outside looking in. You miss out on some guys that would have come in and been immediate, big time difference makers right away. So I could imagine that Poles in certain situations would be eager to go ahead and be aggressive, move back up at the top end of round 2, and go ahead and get a difference maker on the defensive line.
And it looks like Skronsky is going to go to the Titans at number 11. So Skronsky, the Northwestern product, looks like he's going to go number 11 overall to the Titans. we talked about this guy at length. So I mean, it's kind of inconsequential to the Bears at this point. But what do you feel about Peter Skoronski going to the Titans? We talked about the arm length. We talked about the ability, the flexibility. Is this guy, you think, going to get kicked to guard, or is he going to get a chance? Where's he going to play at?
They lost Nate Davis to the Bears, and he was a right guard. So I wonder if they flip him over to make him fill in there for Nate Davis at right guard. So we'll just see. Now they lost their left tackle as well. They cut Taylor Lewan, but they did sign Andre Dillard from the Eagles. So he's going to be their starting left tackle. So I don't think he's going to be a left tackle. I think if I obviously don't know the Tennessee Titans roster that well, but I think he's going to be their right guard to replace Nate Davis, or be a left guard, and whoever they have playing a left guard currently flip over to right guard.
Neil, what do you think about Skoronski going to the Titans? Is this they weren't in on Will Levis, at least right yet. So right. they go with Skoronski. What do you feel about the pick?
Yeah, I mean, he's a very polished kid. He has really good size, really good feet, technically sound. Probably one of the most, if not the most, NFL ready kids to come in and that could play it right away for the Tennessee Titans. I think the other thing about it is that you look at the kind of program that he comes from, a program that I spent a lot of time with. Nothing but high character, passion. All the intangibles that you can possibly attribute to a kid like that exist in Peter Skoronski. Great kid to have in the locker room, bring into your program, and be ready to go right away. He's a powerful blocker in the run game. He moves on the perimeter extremely well. I think he kind of struggles at times with extremely powerful guys. I think the bull rush can sometimes give him some problems, but I mean these are all things that are fixable. With the technique and other things that you can do in the weight room and things of that particular nature. Love this kid. I think he's a plug and play guy right away. I agree, and we've been talking about it. Danny and I have for the past 3 months. We've been doing the show. He's a kid that a lot of these analyst guys talk about as an offensive tackle, but when you look at his measurables, 32 and a quarter arms, man, that is over an entire inch shorter than the record for shortest arms drafted to play tackle in the NFL. He's going to kick inside and play left or right guard and be a really good player for X number of years at that position.
And then before I finish the statement, I just want to let you know that I'm joking here, but you know how Ryan Poles loves when these players are grow up rooting for the Bears, he likes bringing them in. Skoronski, guys, was born in Park Ridge, and he grew up a diehard Packers fan. So could that have turned off Ryan Poles? Said, I'm not drafting this guy.
No, I appreciate you qualifying that.
His dad was a Packers player, so
yeah.
It's pretty easy to be a Packers fan when you're a kid, when your dad's in the Packers Hall of Fame.
Yeah, there's a bloodline there.
Well, it was his grandfather, right?
Or grandfather, not dad, grandfather. Yeah.
So the Lions pick is coming in. That's obviously of good interest to the Bears fans, just because they're going to be lining up against them. And they take Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back out of Alabama, the second running back off the board.
Wow.
Interesting pick.
They just signed David Montgomery.
Yeah, after just signing David Montgomery, the Lions go with out of Alabama. Now, I really did think that Gibbs was going to go in the first round. I did not anticipate him going at number 12, but here he is. Detroit, blazing speed for obviously a 4.36 40. Guys, what do you know about Gibbs and what he can bring to Detroit, and what Bears fans can expect with him lining up in the backfield?
This kid's gonna be a problem. This kid is a playmaker. He's got blazing speed. I put his tape on, and the reminders of Alvin Kamara are there. In terms of being a guy who's got silky smooth hips, quick feet, guy that can bounce in and out of holes, got that deep speed. Well, he can stretch out a zone run, plant cut. It's got that back cut vision, and he can take it to the house. So I mean, so Alvin Kamara was one guy I thought of, and Jamal Charles was another player I thought of when I saw Jahmyr Gibbs play. So this is really a surprise pick here, this high in the. I mean, because obviously Detroit was the talk was a cornerback, and they have Christian Gonzalez. I think, this is a great move by Detroit. They moved down 6 slots and still get the player they're going to possibly take at number 6 with Gonzalez. So Gonzalez is dropping, and so that's interesting as well. But surprise. This is another wow moment. I talked about earlier, guys, started the show. We're going to have a lot of wow moments. So, these grades are all over the board in terms of who teams like, who they don't like. So, definitely a surprise one, but this is going to be a problem for the Bears.
Is this a guy that can line up in the slot as well?
Yes.
Okay, so he's so is it possible that he and David Montgomery could be on the field at the same time?
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
So I mean that that could spell some problems. That gives a different dynamic to that Lions offense. It was already pretty good. Surprised they didn't, want to bolster their defense a little bit more. But and of course, leave it to Aldo to say that David Montgomery just got Mike Glennon. I'm not sure it's that bad. I'm not sure it's of that magnitude yet. But that number 12, a surprise pick. Gibbs goes to the Lions, and now the Packers are on the clock. Is this where we could potentially see the first wide receiver go off the board?
I think I know. I think this could be it could be Broderick Jones. I think could be tackle Broderick Jones. Bakhtiari's been up there in terms of injuries. They also they could go Dalton Kincaid, the tight end as well. They lost obviously Tanya into the Bears, so they don't have a tight end there. So it would be a complete slap in the face to Aaron Rodgers if they went ahead and drafted a receiver here because for years he wanted a receiver. Yeah, maybe. So yeah, I wouldn't throw it out there. But for me, my top receiver is Jordan Addison out of USC. I know Jackson Smith and Jigba gets the love, but for me, Jordan Addison would be the top receiver here.
Much like the Bears, the Packers also have 2 second-round picks, and from what I understand, and I'll defer to you guys, this is a relatively deep tight end class as well, where they could go and get their tight end in the second round. So it'll be interesting to see what they want to do here. And like I said, this is always of great interest of Bears fans because you're going to be seeing these guys in divisional games. So with what they got for bringing in for Dylan Rodgers, do you think they go offense here?
I think go offensive tackle or tight end by Christian Gonzalez, a player that I wasn't as high on as some others were. I loved Witherspoon more, loved him. Is still on the board. He's a guy that can come in and be a plug and play player in their secondary. So that's an option there as well. But if they go best player available, but I don't think they're gonna Jordan Love with Will Levis. So I think it's gonna be Christian Gonzalez or probably either Broderick Jones or tight end.
What do you think, Neil? You tight end or offensive line?
I think they're going to try and get Jordan Love weapons. I think he needs to excel immediately, and the only way he can do that is have guys to throw to. And yeah, obviously taking a guy like Broderick Jones is certainly going to help as well. But I think that they're going to go ahead and try and get that kid weapons immediately. And the other thing about it too, I didn't get a chance to piggyback off Danny talking about the Jahmyr Gibbs pick. And the thing about it is now what you have is a legit 2-weapon backfield, a guy that can line up at the slot position, and a guy that when he's in space making a first man miss or out there on a route or whatever the case may be, really hard to explain his feet and his quickness and his agility and all these different types of things with words like like sound effects are the only things that really kind of like set the bar on how quick and explosive that kid's short area is. I mean it's going to be nasty watching that kid play against us over the next couple of years. Not trying to be a Dougie Downer over here or anything like that. But damn, dude.
It's not going to be a receiver for the Packers.
Go ahead, Danny. Go ahead and tell us who it is.
Lucas Van Ness from Iowa, defensive lineman.
Really? They go defensive lineman with that. So what do you feel about them going D-line? And obviously, Neil, to your point, they got to figure out if Jordan Love's the guy basically this year. But they ought to go
14 days they have left to figure out if they're going to pick up the option on that kid.
Yeah. But instead they go Lucas Van Ness with the number 13 pick out of Iowa. Is this a kid that can make an automatic impact on that defensive line for the Packers and cause some problems for Justin Fields and company?
Yeah, this is a highly athletic kid. He's a guy that it's weird. He never started a game in Iowa just because I guess there's a whole senior thing there they do there. But, talk about length, 6'5", 272. He's got a chiseled exterior. This is a guy that can play defensive and defensive tackle. So obviously, I believe they're still running the 3-4 up there. So he's probably going to be a 5 technique for them. Could even set up in a 2-point stance, to be honest with you, and rush as an outside linebacker too. So, good first step quickness. He's got the length. He's still developing. He's a guy that's going to get better as he gets stronger and as he gets a little bit more refined in terms of his pass rush technique. But yeah, definitely a guy that's going to be an impact player for them. I'm not sure if he's going to be a starter right away, but definitely a guy that's going to be. I think Rashawn Gary's coming off an injury, so I'm not sure if he's fully healthy or if this guy replaces Rashawn Gary. But think about a more more athletically gifted, with more length, Rashawn Gary here for them in terms of a guy that can get after the quarterback and provide some pressure. So I like them. I don't know, Neil, if you like them. I like them better as an inside defensive tackle than more than an edge player. Me personally, I think his ability is because I was scouting him for the Bears, and I thought if the Bears get him, he's a guy that could probably line up as inside that 3 technique, and he's got that first step ability to be able to kind of get in between the guard and the center and slither into the backfield. So I like him potentially as a defensive tackle for the Bears, but I think he's going to be like a 5 technique, probably, maybe even an outside linebacker. We'll see how they utilize him there in Green Bay.
I could easily see that. I think if you watch his film, he lines up in so many different positions. They're showing the highlights of him right now. He's inside, he's on the edge in a 3-point, he's rushing off the edge in a 2-point. He executes a variety of different types of roles in that defense for him. I could easily see him moving inside a 3 technique, kind of similar to the way that we look at Tui Pelotu and Adebawore and other guys that did have a lot of play history on the edge, but also had the size to where if you couple that with the athletic ability, moving him inside, putting a couple more pounds on him could be an absolute disruptor. Coming off the ball at 3 technique position. Interesting kid. He's a large human. 6'5", 272, 11-inch hands, which is massive, 34-inch arms, which is massive, almost 82-inch wingspan. Not as massive as Tyree Wilson, but he's a freak. But I mean, he's got some really nice measurables. He's a powerful kid. He has incredible closing bursts, violent, mean hands, big time motor kid. A lot of his plays, I feel like if you watch his film, a lot of his plays are spent making backside plays in pursuit, which kind of attributes to the motor, but also kind of makes you kind of like dig deeper into the film in terms of like how well does he actually win one-on-one. What is his play strength at point of attack, those different types of things when he's actually in the trenches in battle. So the interesting thing with him is exactly where he's going to play, how the Packers are going to use this kid. I think he's got a bunch of interesting physical and athletic traits, and they could probably pretty much mold him to what they want him to be. He kind of falls in the same kind of the same mold as like a Dean Lowry type of kid from a draft pick prior. From Northwestern, similar type of kid, big, long, played end, but kind of moved inside a little bit, moved around a little bit. Had length and athletic ability. He's an interesting
we have
player.
a trade here. We
did do a trade. The Steelers just moved up to the 14th overall pick, trading with New England. Maybe they were waiting to see what Green Bay did. Do you think this is Jones?
I think it's going to be Jones. Yep.
Yeah, so it just makes sense that they need that help on the offensive line.
Or Gonzalez, the corner. They lost their starting corner to Detroit. So that could be someone there too in terms of getting the corner with Gonzalez back there as well. So
how many spots did they move up? It looked like they moved from
3 spots.
Yeah, they moved up 3 spots. So the compensation may not be overwhelming, but they
pick 120, which I believe is
whatever it is.
5th. I think it's a 5th round pick, if I'm not mistaken. Pick 120 is what they gave up.
It looks like it's going to be. I mean, they're showing a lot of Broderick Jones stuff right now, so I mean, it seems like that could be the trade, and that would be a big get for the Steelers because of what they need. Who it is. So
that's who it is. It's Broderick Jones.
Okay, so Broderick Jones is going to go to the Steelers at number 14 overall as they move up. They trade with the Patriots.
They jumped the Jets.
Okay.
The Jets at 15 were going to go offensive lineman. So they jumped the Jets with the Patriots and go get Broderick Jones.
So Broderick Jones out of Georgia, 21 years old, 311 pounds, 6'5", 33 3/4 inch arms, 10 5/8 hands, ran the 40 and 4.97. What do you guys feel about this guy moving? Where's he going to play for the Steelers? And is he a day one starter?
For me, he's a guy that's a left tackle, an athletic left tackle, still developing. He's a guy that for me was really strong at the point of attack, could really move guys, has strong hands to grab, steer, torque and turn defensive linemen. Still developing. Only 19 starts, only at left tackle. So for me, I think they might put him in at left tackle. I'm not sure what the situation is there at right tackle though. But I think that's where they're going to do. So basically, Aaron Rodgers already cost the Jets Broderick Jones, because at the 13th pick, if they had stayed there, they would have probably taken this kid. So now they drop back behind the Patriots, and the Patriots go ahead and help the Steelers get this guy out of their division, obviously, and the Steelers come up and they snag Broderick Jones away from the Jets.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. As far as the Jets could have, if they wouldn't have swapped the picks, they could have taken him there. That was
Right.
so that out of that Aaron Rodgers play. But Neil, what do you feel about Broderick Jones? What he brings to the table, and what's he going to do in Pittsburgh?
This kid has a lot of unique things to him, to where like you put him in the rare category. And I remember when I was at Mississippi State looking at this kid in high school. I think it was at Lithonia, if I'm not mistaken. But you know, Danny said it. He's still a little bit raw. He's still a little bit developmental in certain ways. But think about not having any of the skills that he developed at Georgia, and just seeing a 6'5", 300-pound just athletic freak running around the football field, putting guys in the dirt. I mean, his film to a certain extent kind of reminded me a little bit of Elton Jenkins out of Clarksville, Mississippi, that ended up being taken by the Green Bay Packers a couple years back. A kid that could easily play even today all 5 positions across the offensive line, but long, athletic, and physical has been this kid's game since the dawn of day. And he's a really easy mover. He's got excellent feet. He's quick to mirror. Excellent knee bend, hip bend, ankle bend. If you look at this kid's frame, I mean, you can kind of see it on TV right now. If you guys watch the same feed that I'm watching, a very lean build, tiny ankles. He's got that athletic frame that is kind of a scary thing to have. Once you have some power, some physicality, and then once you also coach this kid up to be technically sound, like some of these other players that we talked about tonight. I love this kid. Get him a little bit stronger. Get him a little bit more, coach up in terms of his position-specific skill set. You can see him easily able to redirect and combo and operate at second level. This kid is a freaking beast. Man, I loved him in high school.
Yeah.
I loved him at Georgia. Jets gonna love him now. Or Steelers, I'm here to love him now.
Yeah, his issues are still, like I said, developmental, technique wise. He's a little sloppy again, but he's just learning. He's a little pup, He's always, again, now at 19 starts, but I mean, just to be able to start an entire season playing for a national championship caliber team. So he's a guy that's only going to get better. His best football is ahead of him. So I think that's definitely a nice pick. For those who are wondering why the Bears would have picked Wright over him, like I said, Wright is a plug and play right tackle. This kid is more of a left tackle. I don't think he's played right tackle, so that'd be a whole different switch for him in terms of switching sides. Not the fact that he's still learning, still developing, and now you have to make him switch sides. I don't think he'd be ready to start right away, from day one, is my opinion. So I think that's why they went with Wright, a little bit more of a cagey veteran, if you will, a guy that, again, plays a right tackle. And again, just some nastiness. You guys are going to love to see Wright when he gets out in front and he opens in that second and third level, how he buries the second and third level defenders, and just, you guys are going to love him. And I think him and Nate Davis together on the right side is going to be a nice formable, path in terms of creating some lanes there for the running backs.
Is Nate Davis going to play right side? No.
Nate Davis is, I believe, going to play right guard. Yes.
So you got.
I thought Poles admitted. I thought Poles said at a press conference they're going to start him off at left guard and keep.
No, they say they're moving Tevin Jenkins to left guard, and they're going to put the best 5 guys out there, and they're going to kick Whitehair.
I must have heard that wrong.
To center. That's what they're talking about. But I mean, they said they're going to put the best 5 guys out there, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, who knows how that actually shuffles out whenever the time comes. Right. But as speaking of time, the Jets are currently on the clock, and now what do? They just acquired Aaron Rodgers. Do they go and they get him a weapon? Do they go and do they take the first tight end off the board, or do they potentially go and they try to see if they could get another offensive tackle? What do you think? What do the Jets do at this juncture? Because they probably wanted Broderick Jones, or they were at least keying in on a lineman. What do they do here?
Yeah, I mean, offensive lineman was one of their bigger needs. With this now, with Jones going now, I mean, he was like up the top 3. It was Johnson, Jones, and Skoronski, and Johnson, Jones, and Wright in terms of my top 3 tackles. So all 3 are gone. So I mean, I think you'd have to kind of pivot here. Now, obviously, they don't need a cornerback because they got Sauce Gardner last year, and they have another corner opposite of him. So that would be the top player available with Christian Gonzalez. So you could go and get another weapon, whether it's a tight end, Dalton Kincaid, or maybe a Jackson Smith and Jigma, or a Jordan Addison. But I mean, they really need to solidify their offensive line. And the one thing they do have is they have Elijah Vera Tucker, who's a right guard, but can't play right tackle. So that could be a situation where if you go get a guy that can play right tackle for right guard for you, and a guy, Steve Avila from TCU, is a guy that I absolutely love. I was hoping that he'd find his way onto the Bears roster somehow, some way. He's a guy that's scheme diverse. He could play a gap power scheme. He could play a wide zone scheme. Athletic guys has played left tackle, left guard, center as well. He's had 2 seasons, 1 season starting at center, 1 season starting at left guard. So he brings that versatility. So if you want to go that way, you could kick him over to right guard and put Elijah Vera Tucker over at right tackle. But the other problem is Mekhi Becton is a guy who's been dealing with injuries and hasn't played, I believe, the last season and a half. So, they're kind of hurting. That's why tackle was their primary position of need. And again, that's why I said, the Steelers knew that, and that's why they jumped them to get with the Patriots to go and take Broderick Jones, the last remaining of the starting first round left tackles.
Are there any pure tackles left with the first round grade that could potentially go in this round?
Anton Harrison from
I was gonna say
Oklahoma.
the Harrison kid out of Oklahoma was the only one I could think of.
He's borderline for me in terms of a first round grade. But yeah, I mean, he'd be a little bit of a reach. But again, everyone's board this year is all over the place. So what might be a reach for me might be just in their wheelhouse. But again, he wouldn't be the best player available. So obviously they'd be filling a position of need, not actually going for best player available.
Neil, would you trade this pick if you could?
Honestly, I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm not sure what's going on inside their draft room. I'm not sure exactly what they're thinking about in terms of their team specific needs. If they absolutely need a tackle to come in right away and play, Anton Harrison would be one of those guys. Matt Bertrand would be another one. Matt Bertrand was one that Danny and I have been talking about on the show since we started back up in January. It would also be a plug and play type of dude, and also a guy that gives you a lot of position versatility as well. I've had multiple scouts say that their particular draft room has Matt Bertrand coming in at tackle, but also shifting inside to guard as time goes on. So he's a kid that's really interesting, but I don't think you take him as high up as the Jets are. I think it's going to be interesting to see where they go here.
Any potential defensive players they could go out? I mean, they just showed. I only don't say that because they just showed a clip of Nolan Smith. Is that a guy that they
Nolan
could potentially
Smith is still out there? But he's for me at least, he's an off the ball linebacker. Maybe you start him off at a strong as Sam. But again, Robert Saleh is a defensive a guy that can create havoc with that. And again, his speed, his athletic ability on that defense, which is already tough. It's a very good defense. We make it even more affordable. But I mean, you could go Christian Gonzalez, have a nice 1-2 punch in terms of corners. They appear to be happy in the war room. So whoever they got looks like they're excited to get. But I mean, they're always right. Every
if they look sad, that'd be a problem, Danny. If they made the pick and they're just there, someone's throwing their hat to the ground, then that's probably not what you want to see. But
I was gonna say, like, every war room is always pumped up, excited. They always got their guy. But in this case, it was obvious, I think, that Broderick Jones was their guy, and then the Steelers jumped him.
Are you guys surprised that Gonzalez has not got picked yet?
For me, I think he was too highly touted. I mean, he's a guy that's very athletic, he's got good size, good speed, but he wasn't really a shutdown corner. He's got press play ability. He's a guy that can mirror off the line of scrimmage. He's got the loose hips, the quick feet. But honestly, and does not to be a knock on him, but it was a little bit soft in terms of his run defense. He's a guy that would be kind of olaying some players. He would come in once in a while and shoulder dive at an ankle and make a tackle, and they'll get blown up on highlights. But watching him just kind of progress throughout the season, he's a highly talented kid athletically, but I just don't think he's a shutdown corner. Had really no interceptions. I think this past season when he had 4 was the first season he put together, in terms of some ball hawking ability. So yeah, his ball production up until this season wasn't what it was this past year. Obviously, he was playing at Colorado. Whole different. I was
just going to say your boys just got taken. It looks like Will McDonald's going to be the pick, and so Will McDonald off the board to the Jets at 15. Edge rusher from Iowa State, 23, 6'3".
Now I know why they're high-fiving each other.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys be high-fiving too if you knew you were taking Will McDonald. But what are the Jets? Obviously, they didn't go offensive line just because of how things were shaken out, so they may have gone best player on their board or of just liking McDonald. Obviously, you guys like McDonald. What do you think about him? Danny, I'll start with you, and then Neil jump in.
Yeah, I love McDonald. This is a guy, 5-year, 5th-year senior, The guy's got the 34-inch arms. He's got the first step quickness. He's a guy that, you know, he's a premier pass rusher. He's a guy that you look for in terms of a guy that brings consistent pressure. You know, only came in at 239 pounds at the combine. I was dealing with the flu prior to the combine. So then I think, Neil, you told me he was 245 at his pro day. So he's a guy who definitely needs to add some weight and get him a little bit stronger. But, you know, for a guy that skinny, he wasn't a turnstile as a run defender. He was adequate. He's a guy that could set the edge and be able to, you know, be a decent run defender for that size. So I definitely love this kid. I wish there was a way that the Bears could have gone ahead and got him on the roster. But yeah, he was my next like favorite in terms of pure pass rusher. You know, just to be able to bend that corner and get parallel with the ground and just, you know, this type of bend, the ankle flexion that we see these premier pass rushers. He has it. So this one stings a little bit. Yes.
Yeah, definitely stings, you know. And you know, he played at Iowa State at 245. He showed up at his pro day at 245. He measured in at 239 at the combine only because he had like 100+ degree fever, you know, 2 days prior to him actually, you know, weighing in. But I mean, what he did in terms of his measurables, you know, this pre-draft process, almost 35-inch arms, 9.5 hands, explosive with a 36-inch vert, 11 broad jump. He ran 4.62 and 4.65 in the 40 on his pro day. With a hoodie on, which I was joking around the last show. I probably, you know, you probably had the scouts, you know, joking around about how he probably could have ran faster without the parachute attached to his back. But, you know, in terms of his quickness, he had a 6.6 shuttle or a 6.6 cone, 4.21 shuttle, you know, all phenomenal numbers. You know, he's a type of dude where, you know, you could suppose the Bears could put another maybe like, you know, 10, approaching 15 pounds of mass and muscle on him, get him close to 260, 255 plus, as strong as he's able to play against the run. And it's you know, a unique deal. Now you look at that kid, you think like he's probably not a very good run defender, but he's a lot stronger than he looks, especially with that length, the dynamic pass rush threat that he brings off the edge. You know, there's a reason why I had him number 2 behind Tyree Wilson for a reason. I think he's a dynamic ball player that can really bring a different element, you know, to a particular defense that needs that particular type of element to exist. You know,
what's curious
in terms of how. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Neil. Finish.
No, I was going to say, like in terms, I was thinking about this the other day in terms of like how like unpredictable his run defense is. I kind of thought about and compared him to Montez Sweat in terms of like, you know, body type and length, and, you know, two guys that did not look like they could function against the run if you just look at them on the hoof, but were surprisingly effective, sagging an edge, being physical, and you know, especially being the man across from them and making plays in the backfield. So I mean, you know, he's a guy that can be a 3-down player, can be functional and on run defense as well as in the passing game, rushing the passer. He's a backfield disruptor all the way.
I'm just curious. Like, obviously, the rich get richer, right? They have a pretty good defense, and they had this kind of caliber pass rusher. But they drafted Jermaine Johnson from Florida State last year in the third of their last of their 3 first-round picks. I'm curious, are they giving up on him, or are they just said, hey, you know what, this guy was out there, it was glaring, and we just have to get him?
What did he do last year at New York?
I don't recall if he did anything, if he made an impact or not. I don't think it was hurt. I think he played. I just don't know if he, you know, in terms of impact, was he a bust? I mean, were they already giving up on Jermaine Johnson? So I'm just curious, because I think he was obviously the other 2 first-round picks were you know, offensive defensive rookies of the year. Johnson was the 3rd guy who didn't do much.
Well, we're on the 16th pick now, and that's Washington, which brings up the question: when is Will Levis going to get drafted? And so could it be here? And if it's not here, where does he go? Because then you got
not here. That's for sure.
So it's not going to be.
Patriots were linked and supposedly very high on Levis, so I wouldn't be surprised if they go ahead and take him there. But then you also think about, okay, well, they got Mac Jones. Are they just going ahead and giving up on Mac Jones?
Yeah.
But all the reports coming out are like, oh man, the Patriots were really high on Will Levis. All the people, I think they know things about stuff. So who knows?
So Danny, you already know who
Neil's
they're taking.
Neil's guy just got here.
Who?
Neil's guy just got drafted.
Go on.
Emmanuel Forbes.
Oh, Forbes went.
Forbes goes
before Christian Gonzalez.
So okay, so what do you think the thought process is on that? Why Forbes over Gonzalez if you're Washington?
Well, Forbes, I've talked to a lot of NFL guys over the course of the past couple of months, ever since the draft. You know, because the whole 166 thing, that was kind of a unique situation that that I thought was going to be extremely fascinating to see how that played out. You know, a lot of guys would say that, you know, or really, I shouldn't say a lot of guys would say, because his grade was pretty much all over the board. He has round one talent, 1,000%. You know, he has the FBS record for pick sixes. He has elite ball skills, elite coverage skills, and for all intents and purposes, is elite for everything except for his weight. He came into his pro day at 170, which was a positive development and showed that he was, number one, cognizant of it, but also number two, continue to work at it. But the thing about him is that, you know, kind of the same way I appreciated, you know, the Alabama quarterback, and that, like, he understood what his limitation was, but he accepted it, he embraced it, and he also is really not confident, not cocky, right? He was you know, confident, not arrogant, right? In the sense that, you know, he would tell you to your face, like, listen, I made plays at the SEC level. I was physical at the SEC level, absolute ball hawk at the SEC level. The 166, 170 pounds never limited me at the SEC level before, and I'm one of the, you know, the best, you know, cover corners in, you know, in the in college football coming out in this draft. Some things I've gotten over the past couple of weeks. A scout in the NFC East told me, you know, when he was on his top 30 visit, he had several top 30 visits over the course of the month. You know, number one, you know, he was great in the meeting room, just a high quality, top class human being. But in terms of the kid, like, you know, you would have, you know, guys like this NFC East director say he's a stud, has to fill out, but elite ball skills. NFC South assistant director, who's going to be a future GM, said, you know, there's not a whole lot that has changed with Forbes, meaning that they loved him from the very start. Teams are going to have a really good grade on him, but there will be GMs saying we just can't take a guy that light with our first pick. Don't be surprised if he ends up going somewhere around 30. And there was another one just recently that said an NFC West guy that said, you know, elite in every way possible, but, you know, his strength is kind of a concern. Well, I tend to think that there's a bunch of smart human beings that are going to figure out a way to put enough mass and enough strength on an already, you know, pound for pound strong body to hold up against the run. You know, think about it is, like I said at the very beginning of this, that kid is elite in every way possible. It just took, you know, one team that was bold enough and liked him enough to go ahead and take a quote unquote risk on him, you know, on the back end of the first round, like we're seeing here. I mean, I saw this happening in some way, shape, or form. Somebody just going ahead and taking that type of a risk to where he goes. I thought it would be probable that he'd be, you know, 20 to 40, 25 to 35, somewhere in there. Didn't necessarily see 17. Is that where we're at right now? 16? Didn't necessarily see 16, but, you know, when you're talking about his skills, you know, his ability as lethal as he is as a cover corner, that in and of itself doesn't surprise me.
And then NFL's probably seen what I saw too on tape in terms of Christian Gonzalez. I mean, he's a guy, again, for me, was a little bit soft. I mean, he's a guy, you know, this kid, Forbes at 160 came down, was more aggressive in terms of his run defense. He threw his body around, again, you know, in the SEC, so a better overall conference. And for me, you know, Gonzalez, superior athlete, you know, tremendous measurables, but again, just a guy that up until this year had no interceptions in his career, played 2 seasons at Colorado, really had nothing in terms of, you know, pass defense. You know, this year had maybe a career year with 4 picks and 7 passes defense. So athletically, he's gifted, but just again, his overall game just wasn't there. And even his transition out of backpedal to coming downhill, you know, wasn't what I expected to see when I watched his tape. So, you know, maybe that's what the NFL is seeing as well. But, you know, you feel bad for the kid he's dropping. Obviously, he felt like he was going in the top 10. So, you know, we'll see where he goes. But definitely, you know, surprised that Forbes went ahead of him, to be honest with you. But I can see why, just because he's a more physical player, even though he's a slider player at 160.
So you're looking at the draft board now, and you have the Patriots and then the Lions. The Lions could get what they wanted when they traded back. They could end up getting Gibbs and then potentially getting Gonzalez at 18, and then they get they get a cornerback that they were potentially high on. But let's talk about the Patriots. Could we finally see the first wide receiver go off the board? We talked about Will Levis. We have no idea where he's going to go. It looks like the pick is in for the Patriots.
They took Gonzalez. They took Gonzalez.
So the Patriots take Gonzalez.
Yeah.
So another cornerback off. So we're going to continue this cornerback chat. So Forbes goes 16 to Washington, then to 17, the New England Patriots take Christian Gonzalez. So I know that we've been talking at lengths about this kid, but what does he do well that he's gonna do well in New England?
He's a guy that can mirror off the line of scrimmage. Like I said, great physical talent in terms of athletic ability. Oily hips to be able to open up and run, stay in phase downfield with the receivers. Got the speed to be able to kind of keep pace with him, stay in his hip pocket. So athletically, he's a guy that can play some press cover and be a guy that will be a guy that can stay in phase downfield. So for me with the Bears, I just felt like his inability to be a secure wrap up tackler. I don't like the fact that he wasn't as physical in a running support game. Was something that really kind of knocked me off, and that's why I put Devin Witherspoon ahead of him in terms of better overall fit for the Bears.
If you look at the physicality that Emmanuel Forbes brings, it's easy to see why the Washington Commanders went ahead and took him over Christian Gonzalez. The other thing that an NFC North director told me was that his feel was that the only consensus opinion on Emmanuel Forbes going into April, I guess, once you get past the pro days, once you get into April, the only consensus opinion really that existed was that if the kid doesn't make it, it certainly would not have been on account of his talent, on account of his skill. Again, that's why you take a guy like that high. To me, the only difference between those two kids was Forbes' physicality. I love Christian Gonzalez in terms of his fluidity, his smoothness. He just kind of floats on the field. He's one of those kids to where it doesn't look like he's putting in much effort into anything he does. And he's also very sudden, very quick, short area bursty. A lot of explosion with this kid. Watching him do the drills, he almost stood out in the sense that, when he's in, shorts and t-shirts, when he's doing underwear Olympics, he's like head, shoulders, knees, and toes over all these guys because he probably number one, practices at it. He's very skilled at it. But he's also just so damn smooth. And that may be the one thing that Emmanuel Forbes doesn't have to the elite level that Christian Gonzalez has, but I'll take a physical dude over just a guy that can float around the field, to be honest with you. A guy that can hawk the ball and be ball productive.
All right, we actually have another snippet from Greg Gabriel talking about Christian Gonzalez and what he thinks on the quarterback who just went to the Patriots. So let's go ahead and see what he has to say.
Played at Colorado for a couple of years, but I thought he was outstanding when he was at Colorado and picked up where he left off at Oregon. He can take your best receiver right out of the game. Best corner in the draft. He's tall with length. He's athletic. He can run. Got excellent cover skills in all the different phases of coverage, being press man, off man, or zone. Makes things look easy because he's so smooth. He's got really good hands and ball skills. I think he's better than, if you want to compare him to some guys last year, he's better than both of the Washington corners, Kyler Gordon being one, and the guy Kansas City took in the first round, and Gordon went high in the second round. This guy's a hell of a player.
Obviously, Greg Gabriel pretty high on Gonzalez, who goes number 17 to the Patriots. So now what do we got? The Lions coming up, and I'm not sure if their pick is in yet or not, if they've already chosen their guy. But if you're the Lions, what do you do? Is there another? Could you go cornerback again? Because could Joey Porter be a possibility here?
Yeah, that's the next guy on my list in terms of best available corner would be Joey Porter Jr. They can go there. They can go defensive lineman in terms of Kalijah Kancey. That's something that I know there was a rumor to them. Nolan Smith is still out there. Miles Murphy as a defensive end from Clemson could be there as well. If they want to go offense, I think they pretty much just went offense with Gibbs picks. I think they might want to go defense here. So I'm curious to see, but I think a kid like Kalijah Kancey, Deonte Banks. I don't know how Neil feels. I wasn't as high on him. I think I like Porter a little bit more, even though Porter only has one career interception. That the ball skills are not there, but he's a more taller, 34-inch arms. He's got the NFL bloodlines. He's a physical, come down and wrap up and tackle type of cornerback. So I think knowing Detroit and the type of staff they have there, I think they would probably kind of gravitate more to Joey Porter Jr. than you would to a Deontay Banks, but if they go corner, otherwise, if they want to go defensive line, I think Kalijah Kancey would be a guy that they might look at.
They
I
also
wonder if
traded
they'll go
TJ
ahead and start
Hawkinson
that
last
run on
year.
tight ends.
I was gonna say, literally, they got rid of TJ Hawkinson last year. They could probably use a replacement for him. Neil, to your point, they could start the run on tight ends, and if they do so, who do you think they take?
Well, you got the Dalton Kincaid kid, who's probably more of an F, a really athletic kid that has some explosion to him. There's the kid out of Notre Dame, who is more of your traditional tight end, that
Mayer.
Michael Mayer. Really good blocker, really good receiver. He could be on the line. He could be in the F position. You can even line him up in the backfield, and big time teammate, big time intangibles guy. And then
there's Luke Musgrave from Oregon State as well.
Yeah, Luke Musgrave, the kid out of Oregon State, who just knocked all the testing at the combine out of the park. Darnell Washington is a guy that a lot of our fan base loves. From Georgia, just from being a physical freak and length, athletic ability, size, physicality. Any one of those four guys, I can easily see Detroit going with. I think if you go with the best overall guy on the board, you go with Kincaid out of Utah. But it just kind of depends on what they want out of that position group, I think.
Does the depth of the position make people maybe make teams a little more hesitant to maybe lay off until the second round to make that pick, given that they could get that next pool of 2, 3, 4 guys and say, let's address something else, and then the second round will go after the tight end?
I think if you're at a place where you have multiple weapons on the offensive side of the ball, like Detroit already has, you want to go ahead and just add more weapons as you possibly can. If you're in a position where you can get the best weapon left on the board at a position where you do need that particular weapon, you go ahead and get the best one available. In which case, Dalton Kincaid would be a pretty reasonable pick here for the Lions if they went that route.
And it looks like the pick is in, and it could be linebacker Jack Campbell.
See, our third wild, at least for me, a third wild moment, because I had him like second day 2 for sure. I didn't think he was first round caliber, but
that's 2 wows from the Lions, because they go and they get Gibbs at 12, and then they get Campbell at linebacker at what is that 18 that they're picking at right now.
Yep.
So go ahead and turn the page to the Jack Campbell information, Danny. What are they getting in Detroit?
Yeah, instinctive linebacker, a guy that can play some middle, can play some off, weak side linebacker as well. A guy that brings that physicality. Again, smart, diagnosis pre-snap and post snap is quick to react. So obviously an Iowa player, these guys are well schooled in terms of their fits, and then be able to kind of key off of what the offensive lineman in front of them do. So I think he's a nice player. I don't think he's a first round player. At least I don't have a first round grade on him. So to me, it's a little bit of a reach. But again, this is the year where my reach could be their best player available. So, but that's how it is. But a good player. I just didn't think he was first round caliber. But
what do you see in this guy, Neil?
There was a mock that I saw earlier today. I can't remember if it was Jack Campbell or a kid out of Arkansas, but one of the guys that was throwing out mocks earlier today had his kid in the top 10. And again, I'm not sure if it's this kid, the Arkansas kid. They're almost interchangeable to me, but Iowa linebackers, you're getting toughness, you're getting physicality. You can't ever say no to that from an outfit whose head coach begins his initial press conference by talking about kneecaps and quadriceps muscles and biting off all the things and stuff. I mean, he kind of fits the mold, doesn't he?
Seems like a Lions player, yeah. given the
listen,
I like Dan Campbell. He goes and gets Jack Campbell. I like the intensity. Now, whether that translates into sustained success, I don't know. But they go and they get Jack Campbell at number 19, which now leads to the Buccaneers.
19 Buccaneers are 19. I think this is where Will Levis could come into play here. We'll see what happens here. But because if the Bucs pass on Will Levis, the next team I'm looking at possibly needing a quarterback would be Minnesota. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Or somebody could have to trade back in, maybe, because at that point, if the Buccaneers do not take Will Levis, I don't know if Seattle takes him at 20 as a guy to sit behind Geno.
Or hell, shit, you got the Buccaneers, who are kind of like up in the air on the quarterback right now. Seattle is probably looking for the long-term solution to Geno Smith whenever he leaves. Vikings have Kirk Cousins. He's not going to be there for long term. Outside of
Yeah,
that,
after
everything
that.
else in the bottom half of this first round here, guys, is they pretty much have their quarterback situations set. Maybe
And
the
if it doesn't,
Saints.
yeah, if it doesn't play out, maybe that that 30, that 31 spot for Philly and the Chiefs, that could be a nice place for someone to trade back in at the end, just so they get that 50-year option. And then so is it, and we'll have to see, because we're still only at pick 19. But the further that Will Levis falls, you assume that's the further that Hendon Hooker is going to fall. Is that guy going to fall out of the first round now, do you think?
I mean, I heard some teams were, again, lying season, like I said earlier, but some teams are supposedly really, really high on Hooker. Some had him higher than Levis and Richardson combined. So, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, the fact that he's dropped this far and no one's traded up to get him, shows that the NFL wasn't really high on him. Now, there are reports that he turned some teams off in interviews, that he's a little bit of eccentric guy, a little bit out there, and maybe thinks highly of himself. So I don't know if that's something to do with it, but I mean, you go put on his 2021 tape where he was with Liam Cohen, who was the offensive coordinator at Kentucky, who came from Sean McVay. And I mean, he was under center. He ran a pro style system. He had Wan'Dale Robinson there. He had his center there. He had his guard there. And he had his running back there. He's a guy that put up numbers. There was a shootout I watched with Tennessee. Him and Hooker went back and forth. Kentucky lost, but he put up 372 yards. I think 4 touchdowns and a pick. So, he's a guy that in 2021, you watch his tape, you see the talent there. You see the ability, obviously the prototypical size, the arm strength, he's even mobile. I mean, he's got the ability to run. This year, different. Liam Cohen back to the Rams. They bring in this another offensive coordinator who was with the Broncos and Vic Fangio, and he ran a pro style system, but it wasn't the same kind of system in terms of weapons weren't there. Offensive line was bad. He got hurt. He got a back case, a turf toe, non-throwing left shoulder. He was damaged. I mean, he couldn't even run. That's how bad he was. So he got punished, and he made some bad decisions. He threw the ball, in coverage a lot of times, and you put on some highlights and you see some throws that are just like, whoa. But kid's talented. I mean, the kid's talented. I just don't know if it's the interview process, if it's personality turning teams off, or what. But I mean, the fact that he's been in a pro style system, the fact that he can come in and kind of decipher this stuff, can have a head start on some of the other quarterbacks. I'm a little bit surprised he dropped this low.
So it looks like that the pick is in for the Buccaneers, and it could be Kalijah Kancey, and the defensive tackle out of Pitt, 22 years old, 6'1", 281, 30 and 5/8 inch arms, 9 1/8 inch hands, runs a 4.6 40. He goes to the Buccaneers at 19. This is a guy that some Bears fans thought could potentially fall into the second round, but he goes in the first. What do you think of this pick going at number 19 to the Buccaneers?
Yeah, for me, they run a 3-4 system out there, so it's a little bit of a curious fit, unless they're doing something in terms of a scheme change that I missed over the offseason. But Todd Bowles runs a 3-4 scheme. He's not really a fit there. I'm not sure what their plan is. I don't think they're going to stand him up in a 2-point stance and rush him off the edge. I don't know. He's too small to be a nose tackle. So Kancey, I've talked about it before. Tape wise, first round talent. But just the measurables weren't there for me. And in terms of a scheme fit for the Bears specifically, I mean, he'd be an ideal 3 technique. He's in his quickness off the snap, his ability to cross rush the face mask of a guard and get into those gaps. I mean, it was lightning quick, and it would have been exciting to see him in that gap penetrating defense. So this is a bit of a curious pick for me. I'm not sure why or how the Buccaneers envision using him, but will be interesting to find out.
Niel, we talked about this guy a little bit at the beginning of the broadcast, but what do you think the Tampa Bay gets in this guy? What can he do well? What can he get better at?
Yeah, we've talked about this kid so many times on previous shows, and the thing about it is he's got all those unteachable things with his quickness and his motor and his explosion, and he's here we go again. He's being compared to Aaron Donald. He's on the screen right now, next side by side with Aaron Donald. And that's nice and cute and all, but the thing about it is that you look at that arm length right there, that 2-inch difference in arm length. That is the difference between Aaron Donald being an electric player and Aaron Donald being just a pedestrian player in the NFL. That 2-inch arm length makes a difference. And you know what? If Kalijah Kancey ends up being another Aaron Donald, a spitting image, then Danny and I will happily come on the show and say we were wrong, right?
Right.
But the thing about it is that taking a kid with that short of a frame and those arm measurements is a massive risk. And especially in the first round, when you're paying guys to come in and being surefire solutions, that is a big risk to freaking take. And so, I guess the Bucks have it figured out, but for the Bears, when you have nothing across the defensive line that's going to carry you out 3, 4, 5 years from now, taking a kid like this is going to be a massive risk. You need solutions right away, and that's why you don't take Elijah Cansey, especially with a first-round pick. Who knows what's going on inside the Buccaneers draft room right now?
Yeah, so we
not saying it's a bad thing at all.
Right.
I'm not criticizing them at all. I'm just saying that, to each their own, essentially, right? Beauty in the eye of the beholder kind of thing.
If this was the NBA draft, the first reaction I would have had when that pick came across, I'd be like, oh, it's a trade. They're picking him from another team, but this is not. It doesn't work that way.
Right, exactly.
Right.
100%.
They're stuck with him. They picked him. They're going to keep him. So now we move to pick 20 now. You find it interesting that we've had 2 running backs off the board, not 1 wide receiver yet. Did you expect? Do you expect it?
This receiver class wasn't up there. I mean, obviously Jordan Addison is my guy, but there's concerns about him in terms of size. 5'11", 187 pounds, but he's a guy that, again, another one you put on his 2021 tape when he was playing at Pitt with Kenny Pickett. He see him doing stuff down the field, getting vertical, jumping over guys, getting the ball over up defensive backs' heads. So he's a guy, he went to USC this past season, didn't have as productive in terms of yardage, season, but still had 8 touchdowns. So he's still a guy that you could, get the ball in his hands and get him, get him free. But I had him kind of going to the Chargers. The reason being at the Chargers because he's got his receiver coach, I believe, from high school was with the Chargers now. So we'll see if he goes there. Jordan Addison, that is. But in terms of, people are talking about Zay Flowers going, and he still might go in the first round, but Zay Flowers with sub 30-inch arms. I love the kid. I love the talent. Again, I love his tape. But, I've been told by scouts before, receivers with sub 30-inch arms, they're very rare to go in the first round because you can barely do anything with them, right? They're pretty much slot receivers or the guys you just get the ball to them in the open field on jet sweeps, bubble screens, so on and so forth. So, we'll see if he goes here. But I thought people talking about Zay Flowers going early in the first round. So yeah, Dalton Kincaid's still out there. And obviously the tight ends group is still out there. So there's been a run on some defensive linemen here. But you can see that the drop here is where now from the Bears, I wonder if there's a player they're eyeing here in terms of defensive line, because I'm assuming the rest of the draft or majority of the draft picks should be all defensive related, especially defensive line. But, Joey Porter Jr. is a guy that fits the Bears scheme in terms of a guy that brings physicality at corner. Again, not a ball hawk in terms of, ball production. So might not be a guy that they like. But we're talking about maybe potentially trading back up into the first round. So we'll see what happens here. But definitely some interesting things going on. Will Levis still out there.
Mm-hmm. The Ravens are on the clock. They just signed Lamar Jackson to a mega deal. They probably would like to get him a weapon. Maybe they go receiver in a couple picks. So waiting on Seattle. It looks still waiting for the pick unless anyone has heard anything else different that the Seattle has gotten their pick yet. Could this be where I'm still trying to find a spot for Will Levis? Could it be in Seattle?
This could be a spot. They went to all the pro days for all these quarterbacks. They were there, obviously for all 4 of them. So if they were serious, if there wasn't just a whole big smoke screen, just to use up Paul Allen's private jet, they could take him here and they could stash him if they feel like he's not ready. They could stash him behind Geno for a year or 2. And let him just kind of get there. But this would be a nice pickup for them, I think. Again, a guy that I feel like playing the pro system was really hurt last year. You put on his 2021 tape, and you see a first round NFL quarterback.
Can we confirm whether or not Will Levis was casted as Bo Callahan in draft day?
Yeah, I was gonna say this sounds like a Bo Callahan kind of thing where he apparently was not interviewing very well.
Looks like him, dude.
Are they so the Seahawks? They go with a cornerback to start off the draft. Any possibility they stay defense? Were there any safeties that had a first round grade that they could potentially go into the back end of the first round here?
The only one that was borderline, at least for me, I don't know about Neil, but for me it was Brian Branch from Alabama. He was more of a slot nickel kind of player. He's a guy that would come down and cover the slot corner, play slot corner position. Real instinctive, not a big guy, but he was listed as a safety. So I don't think really, other than Branch, I don't think there's anyone really that would go here in the first round.
I'm still trying to figure out where they would go. They still have a number of needs. They could go wide receiver. This could be where Smith and Jigba goes. This could be maybe a run on a tight end. They have options here, so it will be interesting as they're. I guess the pick is in finally. There was 20 seconds left on the clock, and finally the pick was in. So we will wait for that to see how the rest of this. We got 10 picks left. Well, I guess we have 11 picks left in this round because there's only 31 in the first round because the Dolphins lost theirs because of a tampering violation. So we will see who it is. It looks like it's going to be Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith is going to go to the Seahawks. We talked about his athleticism. They got Danny. You talked about him a little bit earlier, so I'll let you start off, and then Neil jump in. Nolan Smith, the edge rusher out of Georgia, goes to the Seahawks. What do you like about this, or don't like about this?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the player himself, freak athlete, tremendous worker. Everyone at the Georgia program speaks highly of him. He's one of those like leaders on that talented defensive unit. If you're looking at in terms of a fit with Seattle, just think of Bruce Irvin. The way they used him. A linebacker that kind of rushed from a 2-point stance off the edge. So I think that's the role he's going to fill for them. So they needed a pass rusher. He's not the conventional pass rusher you would think, and when you want to go kind of fill that need, but he's a guy that's going to probably come in and again, great speed. Tremendous athlete, and is going to kind of bring some of that pressure off the edges. Is my guess here. Again, thinking more of like that Bruce Irvin type of role for him.
Neil, this pick, the thing that's as a casual, when you look at this, the first thing that pops out is, wow, 4.3, 9.40. What kind of physical skills is he bringing?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you look at what he did at the combine, 6'2 and a quarter, 238, ran that 4.39 with a 1.52 10-yard split, which I think was some sort of a record. 9-inch hands, 32 5/8 inch arms. And then explosion numbers, 41.5-inch vertical, which I think was top for the linebacker group, 10.8 broad jump. Another kid that has.
I think we have a correction, guys. I think we have a correction. I think it might be Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Is that right?
I think. Let's see what happens here. The pick is in right now, so let's see what happens.
So
yeah, it is.
I think they got the wrong Smith initially.
Oh, so it's not Nolan Smith. So it's
boo. Who reported that? Boo.
Oh, somebody was trying to be first with the reporting, and then of course, us being the notable journalists that we are, did not back channel that, and so it's going to be Jackson Smith.
Good thing I didn't say anything.
Clueless journalists over here.
Yep. That's what happens when you're trying to be first. Mistakes are made. So at number 20, it looks like it's going to be Jackson Smith and Jigba, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. Nolan Smith still on the board. So it looks like the first wide receiver is now off the board. Guys, what does this guy bring to Seattle for a team that already has a pretty solid receiving core as is, but they bring in Smith and Jigba? What do they get?
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of the comps for Smith and Jigba was Tyler Lockett, which obviously is the other receiver from Seattle. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy that really, was getting a lot of a lot of hype in terms of potential he brought, and I thought just because of 1 year, really, 2021, where he had, was it 1,600 yards or something like that, and a ton of touchdowns, but it was more. He was a slot receiver, and he was flanked by 2 first-round picks in Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. And this past year, only played 3 games. I believe it was 60 snaps in total because of a hamstring injury. Missed 10 games, and everyone was just saying that this guy was the best receiver in the draft based off of that. But I'm like, wait, hold up. Jordan Addison's put up Biletnikoff, actually won the Biletnikoff in 2021, and he went to USC. And again, he didn't have the yardage in terms of what he did at Pitt, but he had 875 yards, 8 touchdowns. And your guys are just kind of poo-pooing this guy in terms of, he's not the number one receiver. So that's the thing with me is Jackson Smith and Jigba is a guy that's quick in terms of, he's a guy that's more quicker than fast. He's a slot receiver for me. You put him in a slot. He's got the ability to, beat a corner on that 2-way go. Good hands, natural, pass catcher, solid size. I believe at 6'1", 193 pounds. So he's not a tiny guy, but he's also not a really fast, deep burner. So that's why I didn't get the comp to Tyler Lockett, to be honest with you. But they're showing highlights here, him versus Utah. That was last year's Rose Bowl game, which is the only game that he's played without either Olave or Garrett Wilson, obviously, because they skipped it for the draft. So, and he blew up. He had 195 yards receiving and I think a couple touchdowns. So, and everybody goes to that game. So, but again, talented, pass catcher, smooth in terms of as a route runner, good hands. But again, just a 1-year guy who's only did it for 1 year. And in that 1 year, he was flanked by 2 former first-round picks. So.
Neil, he comes into a wide receiving core where he's not going to have to be the guy. You got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. So, what does this seem like a good transition area for him to be drafted to up in Seattle?
Yeah, like Danny said, when he had his best games, he was on the field with two other guys that were arguably bigger time players than he was. Not a fast guy. I think he ran 4.55 at the combine, if I remember correctly. But
He didn't run the combine. He ran his pro day 4.52, I believe.
At the pro day, right? That was at the pro day, 4.52 at pro day. 35-inch vertical though, 10.5 broad jump, so he has some explosion. His agility numbers were elite level and absolutely blew everybody away at 3.93 in the shuttle and 6.57 in the cone. And that's the whole thing about this kid is his releases, his route running, his changes of direction, his ability to be sudden in his cuts and burst out off the foot in the ground. Lateral agility, short area explosion. Oftentimes when you have a kid that isn't necessarily quantifiably fast, you look for him to figure out other ways to get open. And his ability to burst and be quick and catch the defensive player off guard and create separation, create space, create essentially open windows is a lot of the reason why teams are so high on this kid. They're showing Seahawks notable draft picks in the last two drafts in the first couple of rounds. Pretty incredible. But the kid's really interesting, and he's going to be in a similar situation, like I said at the onset of this rambling that he was in a couple of years ago when everybody fell in love with the kid against Utah in the Rose Bowl. Don't be surprised if he has that kind of productivity.
And now we move to pick 21 with the Chargers on the clock. Are they someone that takes Nolan Smith, who we already wrote off in the last pick, but it turns out he's still available? So is this a spot where he could fall there? Do they go defensive lineman, or they could maybe try to get into the offensive lineman game? Where do you think that the Chargers could potentially go?
I think this is, if I had to guess, this is be a Jordan Addison. Maybe the Smith and Jigba pick now starts a little run on receivers. Like I said earlier, his high school coach is now the coaching receivers coach with the Chargers, so that you can go there. You can go with Dalton Kincaid, the top tight end as well. I think what they're going to do is they're going to try and give their quarterback weapons here. So I think it's either a receiver in Jordan Addison or probably a tight end is my guess.
And they brought in a new offensive coordinator this year in Los Angeles, I believe.
That's the former Cowboys.
They have Kellen Moore. Well, now is gonna be there. So we'll see what they're gonna do there. The pick looks to be in for the Chargers. So, but we'll see if we get the early alert on that. And Danny, it looks like you got the early alert on that.
Yeah, it's a receiver, but it's not the one I thought it was going to be. It's Quentin Johnston from
TCU. Care to share with us? Wow. Quentin Johnston, TCU wide receiver, 6'3", 208, 33 and 5/8 inch arms, 9 and 5/8 inch hands, ran the 40 and 4.49. He goes to the LA Chargers, another weapon for Justin Herbert. So they have Mike Williams, they have Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston joins that ranks. What does he bring to the table?
He's a guy with size, man. 6'3", 208, 33, almost 34-inch arms. He's a guy that ran a 4.49 40. He can get downfield. He's a guy that got those long strides and corners. He kind of jumps on corners because they give him that cushion. Next thing you know, he's with those long strides. He's kind of running by them, and he's a guy that's got that good straight line speed. He's got a second gear. When you see him when he's in phase with a corner, kind of puts in that second gear. Next thing you know, he's getting that over the top leverage. So very productive. Obviously, that game against Michigan had a nice long touchdown run. Shows the ability to contour, get downfield, stretch away from his frame and reel in the catch. So, but the one thing with him is I saw a lot of drops. I saw some drops. I saw double catches. I saw him, caressing the ball into his chest and using his body to kind of secure the football. So that to me tells me is a guy that's got some issues with his hand. So fair, unfair. He was a guy that brought me back some Kevin White flashback. So, scouting for the Bears, I didn't want another, Big 12 receiver with, big size.
Four-letter word around here, Danny.
So, but yeah, I mean, again, the guy's, again, productive, athletic, size. You nailed it there, John, with Mike Williams, a guy who, always when he's on the field is very productive for the Chargers, but that's a problem, is like he gets hurt a lot. I think this would be a guy that could possibly replace him. I believe they redid his contract or gave him a contract extension.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's got a huge salary lineup for next year. So this could be them kind of being forward thinking here and just getting prepared in case Mike Williams does leave via free agency next year. They have his replacement, another big, guy that can go up and make plays on the football.
So we see another receiver go off the board to the Chargers, Quentin Johnson out of TCU. Now we go to the 22nd pick, Baltimore, who could potentially also go with a wide receiver. Could this be a landing spot for Jordan Addison in Baltimore for a new weapon for Lamar Jackson, who's currently they just backed a Brinks truck up to his house with money? So could they go and get a rookie weapon for Lamar Jackson to add to that offense?
They could, but they signed Odell Beckham Jr. in terms of it's a free agent. But Baltimore loves defense, and I think the fact with Nolan Smith out there, that could be something that could entice them there. A guy that could fit nicely in terms of as a 3-4 outside linebacker. I'm off the top of my head, I don't know their depth there at that position. I know they lost Calais Campbell, but he's more of an interior defensive lineman, so that wouldn't fit there. But yeah, I mean, potentially you could go receiver here, but I think the fact they got Beckham, I believe they signed another free agent, if I'm not mistaken, before Beckham. So they might be good there in terms of that that area. Again, they could probably address that later on. I just see a player like Nolan Smith sitting out there kind of glaring for Baltimore, knowing that they love getting defensive players. They also need cornerback, Joey Porter Jr.
I was going to say Joey Porter could potentially be in play here.
It'd be funny that his dad was a Steeler, hated the Ravens, and now he goes and plays for the Ravens.
So looking at the Ravens, the Ravens depth chart at wide receiver is currently Odell Beckham Jr., Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar, as far as the top three. Yep. So I don't know if they're happy with that. I don't know if that's what they want to go into the season with. Obviously, they have a Mark Andrews at tight end, but wouldn't it be just the another chapter in the Ravens Steelers kind of rivalry if Joey Porter gets drafted to the Ravens, and then all of a sudden that makes family reunions really really interesting. That makes Christmas very fun. So we'll see.
Well, you would know, being from Pittsburgh, Joey Porter and the Ravens never got along.
No, that, and I don't. Nobody listen. I wasn't part of that rivalry as far as a fanhood space, but I can tell you that there's nothing between there's no love lost between Baltimore and Pittsburgh in that rivalry. It is very much there's a lot of bad blood there. And so it used to be all about Cleveland and Pittsburgh, and to an extent that's still there. But when Baltimore became a very consistent winner, and Pittsburgh has always been a very stable franchise, that's where the real rivalry kind of got built there. So it might be interesting to see if that's the way that they go. And obviously, we're just prognosticating here. We have no idea what they're going to do, at least for the next 2 minutes, unless we get something earlier than that. So the Ravens currently on the board at 22. Hey, we're running out of places for Will Levis to go in the first round, by the way.
We sure are.
That could be one of the bigger surprises in the draft, that Will Levis, who thought that could potentially go number 4 overall, and there was a Reddit thread saying that he was going to go first overall, couldn't completely fall out of the first round.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I can't remember the draft order. Who's next coming up after?
You got Minnesota, and then the Jaguars.
Minnesota 24. Who I think could be a quarterback team. I mean, really honestly, I think Minnesota and New Orleans are probably the only 2 quarterback teams left.
New Orleans could be a quarterback team. Yep.
Going through the last picks, it's after the Ravens, you got the Vikings, the Jaguars, the Giants, the Cowboys, the Bills, the Bengals, the Saints, the Eagles.
The other thing is, what team in the first round didn't get a quarterback? Could they jump back up and get a quarterback? So we talk about the Titans maybe could get back in, but they talked about the Bucs, maybe Washington, maybe trading back in to get a Will Levis if he drops down to the last few picks. Yeah, to trade back into the first round, you're going to really have to like Will Levis then, because you might have to give up a high pick next year to do that. Right. And that's just that. Like we said, maybe he was not interviewing well, and look at a team like in the second round, maybe a team. Gosh, I'd say now it's hard to tell. Now you look at, because now with Houston getting the quarterback, with Carolina getting the quarterback, that knocks 2 teams out of the race there. like I said, besides Tennessee, I mean, would Detroit want to get someone, or Seattle? Maybe they passed him up twice. Seattle did, so I don't think that
They
trade
pick
back
they
in
pick
to get
again
him.
at 37, and so
Yeah, so
that could be that's an interesting fall, really, because because now it's going to take someone to trade back into the first round unless he does go to Minnesota, unless he goes to Minnesota at 22,
or New
excuse me,
Orleans
23.
possibly. New Orleans with Derek Carr being on a short-term contract there, could be a nice fit there as an heir apparent, if you will. But
unless they feel like they can compete with that division this year, and they need somebody that can be on the field, because it's not like let's the NFC South is not exactly an incredible division right now with a Brady-less Bucks, it's a new and exciting Panthers team with a new coach and a new quarterback, but there's a lot of unknown there. And then you have the Falcons, who we're not sure about Desmond Ridder. They go and they get Bijan Robinson. They got some good pieces on offense, but that division is wide open, especially when you got probably the best quarterback in the division at Derek Carr. So they might just try to go for it this year, and you don't have to draft a quarterback in the first round if you think you can have somebody that can contribute a little bit more. So this is turning out to be pretty interesting. We got a quick little run there on receivers with Smith and Jigba going 20 to Seattle, and then Quentin Johnson going 21 to the Chargers. Do you foresee Jordan Addison going in the first round still?
This pick's going to be Zay Flowers.
So Zay Flowers is going ahead of Jordan.
I was about to say, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Zay Flowers right here.
So three straight receivers are going in. Well, yeah, listen. Oh, it's true. Zay Flowers out of Boston College, 5'9", 182, ran a 4.42 to Baltimore. How does he fit in with Baltimore? What do you see? What does this guy bring to the table? Does he have a different dimension that can take that Baltimore offense to another level?
Yeah, this guy's a playmaker. He's a dude. He's only 5'9", like I said, sub 30-inch arms. I'm surprised he went in the first round, but you know what? Yeah, a lot of people were saying they loved his ability because of the fact that even though he's that size, you put on his tape, he goes up and he fights for the football. He'll go up in a crowd and make a play on the ball. I believe he had 30-some inch vertical jump. I don't have his numbers here in front of me right now, but yeah, this guy's a playmaker, and he's a guy that's probably gonna line up in the slot. A guy who get the ball in his hands, real quick in terms of, again, slip screens, bubble screens, and just let him do his thing. Also has some punt return experience as well. So he's a guy that gives you that advantage on special teams too. So he's a guy that's going to obviously with now with Odell Beckham, with Bateman from a couple of years ago, Nelson Aguilar and Zay Flowers. Obviously, they're going all in on Lamar Jackson and giving him the support he needs. Obviously, it's a new offensive coordinator. Todd Monken comes over from Georgia. He's going to be running more of a pro-style system here now, as opposed to what the previous offensive coordinator ran. So it's a system now where before receivers hated going there because all they do is block. Now it's going to be a system where they're going to be throwing the ball around more often. And I think they're going to utilize Lamar Jackson as a passer more so than a runner. So it's a solid pick. I would have gone Jordan Addison, but again, like I mentioned probably a million times tonight, my board and their board and other boards going to look different tonight because this draft is just so wide open and just so unpredictable.
Neil, where did Flowers rank among the receivers with you?
I had him as what?
I thought you walked away, but I thought you walked away.
Back. I'm back.
Okay.
Shows how much you've been paying attention. No, Zay Flowers, he's a really interesting pick for them because he gives the Ravens something that they don't have. I think I made a note of one analyst calling him a Ferrari. That's pretty much what he is. He is a high octane, top class, start stop explosion, machine of a wide receiver that he could, in theory, you're probably gonna start him off in the slot, but you're also gonna give you as an offensive coordinator the flexibility to do a lot of freaky deaky things in terms of different types of packages. He can line up on the inside and outside. He can take handoffs, coming on jet sweeps, those different types of things. Danny talked about him being used in the special teams game as a return man. So he's an explosive, laterally quick, just tightly wound athlete that has the ability to catch footballs. He gives Ravens something they don't have. And that's why they took him right here. And as this pick was coming up, I was thinking they were talking about Lamar Jackson, how they already gave him. I mean, just reading the subtitles, I don't know exactly how they were saying it, but they already gave him a nice little Christmas gift today. I wonder if they're going to go ahead and give him another Christmas gift as well. At that point, I thought this has to be Zay Flowers.
Yeah, and so we got a run of 3 straight receivers. Smith and Jigba goes at 20, Johnson goes at 21, and Zay Flowers goes 22, which leads us to pick number 23, which is a NFC North foe in the Minnesota Vikings. So there's a number of ways they could go here. They could potentially go and get Joey Porter at cornerback. They could maybe go and get Jordan Addison after letting Adam Thielen go. They could potentially take Will Levis. So what do you think are some options here for the Vikings?
Yeah, I think you just nailed it pretty much there with my picks. Will Levis obviously could be something for the future there, sitting behind Kirk Cousins. The offense that they run with Minnesota, obviously Kevin McConnell came from Sean McVay, Liam Cohen. I'm talking about the offensive coordinator that was at Kentucky, runs the same system. So that'll be real, simple for Levis to kind of slide right in there and then be ready for next year to take over if they so choose. They lost Adam Thielen, so they could go with Jordan Addison here as a receiver. In terms of a defense, I mean, Miles Murphy, a defensive end, but I'm not sure. I know Zadarius Smith is a guy that's has asked to be traded. They ran a 3-4 last year. I know they got rid of the defensive coordinator. They brought in Blades from Brian Flores, the former Dolphins head coach. So I think he's gonna run a hybrid kind of 3-4-4-3. So they could utilize a guy like a Miles Murphy. But yeah, I mean, if I had to guess, I'd probably say I go either, Jordan Addison, the receiver, or Will Levis, the quarterback, and kind of prepare for Kirk Cousins' future.
Any chance that Nolan Smith, who we wrote off and then brought him back to life, could be the pick here?
I thought, did Smith not get selected? Did he not get came back around or no?
Jackson Jigba in place of Nolan Smith.
No, we said Nolan Smith got taken at 20. Yep. He did not. So he's still.
Could be. It could be. I mean, they're still running that 3-4.
One of the top 3 best left on the board, right? If you look at what big boards right now, you look at let's see, you got Levis, you got Porter, you got Nolan Smith, Michael Mayer.
Yeah, the tight ends are. There's supposed to be. Some people are saying 3 tight ends were going to go in the first round, and so far, I don't think 3 are going to go. So, if you're looking for playmakers, you're looking for an edge rusher to fit a 3-4 system. Nolan Smith is out there. BJ Al-Jalari from LSU could fit a 3-4 system as well as an outside linebacker. So I mean, the guy that I hope, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want him to go. The kid from Kansas State is a guy that
you don't want to speak it into existence. Huh?
Yeah, I don't want to speak it into existence because I'm hoping that guy lasts for the Bears. But if you're looking at offensive line, offhand I don't know their situation in terms of the offensive line, but Steve Avila, the guard from TCU, is still out there. So they got some options here for them if they decide to whether they go offense or defense. But it'll be curious to see. I mean, if you're Kirk Cousins and they take Will Levis here, do you turn into different person? He's not Aaron Rodgers, but do you get sour, or do you just understand it's part of the business? You've had a great run in terms of getting all these contracts, and now it's it's your turn. Just kind of.
Yeah, I think Kirk has made a lot of money in his career, and he seems like he'd be a pretty solid teammate when it comes to that. Also, he could potentially think he has a couple more good years left too, so he could be go somewhere else and have success outside of Minnesota. So
I think what Danny was referring to was Will Levis. If you're following this far, do you get sour about it, or do you understand if it's?
No. I was talking about Kirk Cousins. If Cousins would be sour if they bring in a Will Levis.
Well, could Will Levis be sour because apparently he probably feels pretty high about himself.
At this point, if you're Will Levis, do you want that first round money or do you want the second round money? I think I'd go with first round money.
I'd like first round money. Yeah, like that. Yeah,
brother. I mean, do you have a competitive bone in your body if you don't take this personal?
Well, I think that has to be your motivation at that point. At that point, you gotta say, well, these people consistently pass me. Some teams pass on me twice. They don't want me there. I got to go ball out now. And that's what some of the best athletes you ever see, no matter what sport, they have that constant chip on your shoulder. They're constantly looking for that motivation. Michael Jordan made stuff up just to keep himself motivated. So there has to be, if he wants to be the best, and he's going to have to find that motivation. And this would be a good start, falling potentially out of the first round. So we'll see as we wait on pick 23 from the Minnesota Vikings. And then after that, the Jaguars, the Giants, the Cowboys, the Bills, the Bengals, the Saints, the Eagles, the Chiefs. The Chiefs round out the end of the first round. Pretty interesting draft so far. Three quarterbacks off the board. Got 2 running backs off the board. And we had a big stretch of wide receivers late in the first round with 3 in a row. Actually, as we wait for the Minnesota Vikings pick, which they have about 40. I wonder if they're trying to trade this pick because they're down to about 30 seconds left on the clock, and maybe there wasn't anybody on there that they are in love with, or maybe they're trying to get a deal with somebody to move back in. But it looks like the pick is in. They have a number of options here. We'll see.
Jordan Addison.
It is Jordan Addison.
Yep.
Well, gee whiz.
The rich get richer.
So the Vikings go Jordan
receivers.
Addison and 4 wide receivers in a row. How about that? That's going to be a fun talking point in years to come whenever people talk about the draft and who worked and who didn't, and you see 4 straight receivers go off. And so the Minnesota Vikings go and they get Jordan Addison out of UFC, originally a Pitt product, 21 years old, 5'11", 173, ran the 40 and 4.49. Is this gonna? Does he have the capability of taking over that Adam Thielen role in Minnesota?
Oh yeah. This kid's a playmaker, and he's again in 2021 he's a Blindnikov winner. Had over I think 1,600 yards. This is a guy that could potentially. I don't know if he's gonna be number 1, but he's definitely gonna be a real solid number 2 receiver for them.
He doesn't have to be.
Quick in and out of his routes. This is a guy that might be the best runner in the draft, to be honest with you. Just kind of breaking him down here, but definitely a guy that good hands, a guy that goes vertical, has the ability to with the body control to be able to kind of dip his shoulder and get past the corner and then just turn it on and get past them. So this is another playmaker. That's why I said the rich get richer. They had a guy that even a guy like this guy, you can just give him a quick hitting play, whether it's like a slip screen, bubble screen. He's got the ability to juke and create after the catch as well. So definitely a nice pickup here for Minnesota. Like I said earlier, the rich get richer.
Yeah, because you just have to play. He doesn't have to be their number 1, Danny, because they got Jordan Jefferson there, which means he's gonna get a lot of the number 2 cornerbacks, and he can thrive in there. Neil, what can this guy, as far as from a Bears fan point of view, this not ideal for Bears fans, huh?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's certainly not a guy that you like to play against for sure. I love this kid at Pittsburgh. He's one of my favorite receivers that year, and then he transfers over to USC, which, in my household is also one of those 4-letter words we were talking about earlier. But, 5'11" and 1/8, 173 pounds, plays a lot bigger than he looks on the hoof, to be honest with you. At least that's how I feel when I watch him on tape. He feels like a big Z-type receiver that is like undersized for the manner in which he presents himself in the field. And I feel like he plays bigger and physical than he is, but also, phenomenal route runner, like Danny said, probably one of the best in this class. Can really move all over the field in the X, the Z, the slot, kind of similar to the guy that just got taken before him. Great rack guy. Big time deep threat. Size, play, strength, combination is probably something that might concern some teams. But again, like when I watched this kid, I always felt that this kid was like a 6'1", 195-pound kid. And then you go back and you have to, like, at least for me, I have to, recalibrate my mind to think that he's only, just over 5'11", 173. To me is how big he plays. Big time pickup for these guys. Rich get richer indeed.
Yeah, that's. I'd like to just go back to his a couple years ago when he was at Pitt. He averaged he got caught 100 balls for 1,593 yards, averaged almost 16 yards a catch, 17 touchdowns. Now the one thing he did have, he had 11 drops that year. So this past year he worked on that. He only had 2 drops this past year. So went ahead and cleaned it up. And fun fact for Mr. Neil there, he wanted to go to Notre Dame. But the Irish wanted to move him to cornerback, and he didn't want to do that. So ended up going to. This was
coming
back
out of
out of high
Pittsburgh or
school.
coming out of high school.
Coming out of high school.
Yeah, Brian Kelly, what a piece.
So we have a run of 4 wide receivers towards the back end of the first round at 20, 21, 22, and 23. Smith and Jigba, Johnson, Flowers, and Jordan Addison at 23 goes to the Minnesota Vikings. Probably won't see a 5th receiver taken in a row here as we move to the New York Giants at 24. Not to say they wouldn't need one, but what's that?
The Giants just traded up with the Jaguars from 25 to 24.
So the Giants move up to 24.
26 to 25. Or wait.
No, it's from 20.
No,
they were
25 now,
25th. They move up one spot to 24. I wonder who they're eyeing.
They move up one spot. They basically flip picks.
Yeah, because whoever they're trying to get, they probably heard that someone else is trying to jump in and with Jacksonville to get them. So trying to move into that pick. So they secured it.
I can't imagine it's
my
Will Levis.
dyslexic ass was miscounting the Dolphins.
So I know they were looking at receivers. Now this run of receivers, I'm trying to see the next best available receiver on my board is Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee. So I don't think they go receiver. I'm trying to think what else they would need. I know they like Brian Branch, the safety from Alabama, safety / nickel. Pick corner / nickel if you want to call him safety. Alabama, there's a guy that they do like or did like. So
there's a guy that had Jalen Hyatt pretty high.
It could be Jalen Hyatt. He's still available. Obviously, no tight end is gone. So
would you try it? Would you trade up for the first tight end?
No, but they just traded for the kid from the Raiders.
Oh yeah, Waller. Yeah. So
thank you, Darren Waller. So that's not going to be a need. So it's either going to be probably a corner.
Could this be the Joey Porter pick?
Could be Joey Porter Jr. Could be the guy coming up here.
Or it could be Cam Smith.
You mean Nolan Smith? You mean Nolan Smith, or talking about Cam Smith, the corner?
Cam Smith from South
Carolina. Corner. Okay.
Any chance to maybe they don't trade up for it, but like a Deontay Banks from Maryland or anything could be towards the end of the round here.
He's still there too.
He could go, but I don't think you trade up for him. I don't know, because I mean, the one thing I think is hurting Joey. Oh, it is Deontay Banks.
I did not know that. If that's actually true, I had no idea.
Wow.
So that I just threw that name out, and it looks like that is the pick. The Giants take Deontay Banks, cornerback Maryland, 6 foot 197, 9 3/8 hands, ran the 40 and 4.35. They swap picks and go up for him. Why?
They just felt maybe someone was going to come and get him. And I think they just liked the fact that he was a fit in their scheme and they didn't want to lose him. And now for me, I don't know how you feel, but I wasn't that high on Banks as some others were. I mean, I like the size of 6 feet, 197, obviously the 4.35 40. But just a lot of times he got just really too grabby down the field. And there were times he just felt like he was just a little bit lost in terms of coverage. So I wasn't as high on him as another one.
2022.
Yep. So, I don't know, but the Giants obviously love them, and they went up, got him.
Yeah,
I was curious who was going to take them.
He was like a cornerback of the week on one of those teams. He was voted by his peers as cornerback of the week, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have my notes in front of me on the Senior Bowl right now, but
I can say
he's an aggressive player.
Yeah.
He's got good size. He's really aggressive. He's really fast. He's got some shit in his neck.
So the compensation on that was the Giants gave up a 5th round pick to move up one space, and they go and they take Deontay Banks. And I can say with full certitude that I just randomly threw that name out there just to see what you guys were going to say, and then he ended up being the pick there.
This tells you one thing here, JD. This tells you one very important thing, that some of us are blessed to where we get kinetic powers off of pain meds.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden,
we
develop superhuman, types of things going on.
Whatever it takes to play, right?
Happening.
Whatever it takes to play, and then whatever comes along with that is great. And then I got a message here from Aldo saying the Maryland coach told Greg Gabriel that Banks needs a kick in the ass from time to time. Great player, but needs the inspiration. So maybe if you find the right system for him, then he's going to be once you get into that pro system and you have somebody that inspires you, maybe you stick along with it. So we see as we're waiting for the pick to officially be announced. It looks like the Giants are going to take Deonte Banks, cornerback out of Maryland, which leaves us at the 25th pick with the Jacksonville Jaguars, which once again could be a cornerback.
Tight end, maybe a tight end.
Maybe
well,
they get
have Evan Ingram. So they lost the right tackle, I believe, Jawan Taylor. I'm not sure if they filled that spot up. So, Antoine Harrison from Oklahoma is a guy still out there right now in terms of offensive tackle. Could be a guy like Miles Murphy, defensive end.
Yeah, there are any interior linemen, just like pure interior linemen that could.
Steve Avila from TCU is
because there's some teams that you look at the back end of this first round, and maybe Dallas could use one, maybe Buffalo, Cincinnati. Those are all teams that could potentially use an interior lineman. Even the Saints. So
yes, Steve Avila is on my list next. Matthew Bergeron from Syracuse can play guard, he could play tackle. If you're looking for a pure center, John Michael Schmitz from Minnesota is a guy that's out there as well. And the guy I like, Cody Mock from North Dakota State, but I think he's more second round. He's still more developmental for me. He's not a plug and play guy, at least not right away. He's got to get a little bit stronger. Yeah. But he's definitely a guy you would you like his mentality, you like his temperament, the way he plays. There are some players out there in terms of interior offensive linemen. Joe Tippmann is a guy from Wisconsin that maybe fits nicely in that Dallas Cowboys scheme. So depending on what they need at center. So. There are some guys, we'll talk about tackle, and Antoine Harrison from Oklahoma is out there available as well. So
it looks like a potential, a lot of rumors swirling around again that the Jags could potentially trade to the Bills, and the Bills could be on the clock then. So there could be someone that the Bills like if they could move up to 25. They'd be moving from 27 to 25. A lot of short movements in this draft, moving up one spot, moving up two spots. Not a bunch of long
Bills do
here,
have 25 officially. Yep.
So the Bills are on the clock. We keep bringing up Joey Porter Jr. Is he a potentially guy that you say, well, we want a cornerback and Banks goes off the board and we actually have Porter ahead of him. Let's trade up and get him before he's gone at 27. I mean, could that be what they're looking at?
The other thing is, they lost Tremaine Edmonds to the Bears, so they could be looking at a middle linebacker, right?
Would Nolan Smith fit there?
Nolan Smith could be an off the ball, but I don't know if he's a Mike. I think he's more of like a strong linebacker. A Drew Sanders from Arkansas he's a weird one because he's a guy that plays inside linebacker, but he's a pass rusher. I think he had 9 sacks this year, so he's a guy that comes off the edge or brings pressure. So if you like someone like that could be someone. He's a Alabama kid that transferred out of there, went to Arkansas, and again had 9 sacks this past season. So if you're looking for a linebacker, that could be it. If you're looking for a defensive end, the next available best guy is Miles Murphy. Mm-hmm. For me, at least, Mozzie Smith, a big run-stuffing defensive tackle. Benton from Wisconsin, another guy that can clog up the middle of that defensive line. So, those are the couple of guys that you would look at if you're looking for a defensive lineman. That's what the scuttlebutt is. Maybe they traded up and passed the Cowboys for a defensive lineman. So. We'll see what happens here, but
maybe it was a tactical move just to get ahead of Dallas, and because maybe there's only one left on their board that they thought they had a first round grade on.
Maybe they like Adebori, our kid from Northwestern. 3 technique inside. Buffalo has been disappointed with Ed Oliver, a top 10 pick who was supposed to be that 3 technique in that defense. Has really been not what they wanted or hasn't done lived to expectation, I should say. But maybe they're going for someone like that. I think it'd be a little bit too rich for Adebori right now. But you never know. Zach Pickens, another kid from South Carolina, a guy that doesn't really put up in terms of the stats. You don't see much flashy stats at South Carolina, but you put on his tape. Kid's a big body. Kid's got some twitch in him. And potentially could be a guy that can disrupt the middle of the defensive line and get up in those gaps and be a disruptor there too. So, there's some players there that they could look at, but I'd be curious to see. Now, someone's at tight end, but they have Dawson Knox.
They just extended him, I believe.
Yeah, and then they lost Cole Beasley for their slot receiver, so that could be an option too. But with the run of receivers, I'm trying to see who's my next best available receiver. I see Jalen Hyatt is a guy out there. Josh Downs from North Carolina is a
It looks like the pick is in. Not sure who it is yet, but the pick is in for Buffalo. So we will wait on. And Dalton Kincaid is the pick. So they trade up to get the first tight end in the draft. So they moved up 2 spots, and maybe they were worried about Dallas
because Dallas lost their tight end.
Right. Yeah.
Texans.
Yeah. Dalton Schultz. So so they go and they get Dalton Kincaid. They leapfrog. Although it is a tight end. We are sure that it's Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he typed there.
That's what I had reported to me.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it looks like
Josh Allen is the quarterback at Buffalo.
He is. we're doing a football basic show along with the NFL draft show. But yeah, it looks like the Bills are going to take a tight end. Looks like they're going to take Dalton Kincaid. And as we see Will Levis just hanging out with his family still, I feel bad for the guy.
Cole Callahan hanging out there on the couch.
Yeah. And so they must have been really sold on Kincaid if they are going to, because this was a relatively deep class, but to leapfrog Dallas to get him, then they must feel really strong about what he brings to the table. What does he bring to the table, and what can he do for that already potent Buffalo offense?
Yeah, he's a smooth tight end. He's a guy that I compared favorably to Zach Ertz type of player. 6'4", 246 pounds, 32 5/8 arm length. Big 10 1/4 hands. He's the FBS leader for tight ends and receiving yards and touchdowns. Very good size, and can get with good athletic ability. Good ability to be able to extend away from his frame and be able to bring in the catch as well. So very good runner, be able to execute a variety of multiple routes, whether it's intermediate or even be able to stretch the seam a little bit. He's a guy that was a highly rated tight end, the best one on the board. So definitely fills a need. But I should take it back. I don't know if it fills a need, but Dawson Knox is a guy there. You would think that they would want to go ahead and get a guy for maybe they'll figure this guy is a tight end. They kind of just move tight end, someone on the slot and give Josh Allen another big body target there to throw it on the field to. So just a natural pass catcher. Again, my comp for him when I watched him was kind of like Zach Ertz. So I think Zach Ertz when you think Dalton Kincaid.
Neil, do you like that they moved up and grabbed this guy, or could they have waited for someone that could have had the similar production?
No, because I think this kid could have easily been taken by Dallas. He went there on a top 30 visit. There's been a lot of connection between Dalton Kincaid and the Dallas Cowboys. I think they had to go ahead and make this move in order to jump in front of the boys and grab Dalton Kincaid here. This is a good kid. With great ball skills, great hands, has a basketball background, knows how to position his body, win the 50-50 ball, and is also a great blocker in addition to being very productive in the passing game. The thing about it is that there seemed to be a really, really strong connection, as looking back at my notes, between this kid and Dallas. And so that trade up is pretty clutch.
So now we have Dallas on the clock. What could they potentially do here? Because they probably wanted a tight end. Is it too, in your opinion, Neil, is it too early to take another tight end right after that? If you have another first round grade on a guy that could help out that's not Dalton Kincaid that you would be okay with, or do they maybe go and they grab a Nolan Smith or Drew Sanders out of Arkansas, or they try to what do you think they do here?
Well, I mean, if the tight end is what they need, you can go ahead and get the Mayer kid from Notre Dame and get the Musgrave kid from Oregon State. Both those kids, I think, have across the board more often than not solid first-round grades on them. Guys with great measurables and great testing and show great production in the passing game, the blocking game. I mean, especially with a guy like Michael Mayer, he's a kid that can line up all over the field for you from out of the tight end room. So, he could be a direction that they go. I just think Kincaid was like a little bit more of a unique type of athlete at that position. But I guess if you're talking in terms of athletes, Musgrave is sort of the same way. So if they are going to go tight end here, they still have a little bit of a good pick of the litter to bring somebody in.
So once again, I'm going to bring this up just because it's looking like we're continuously running out of spots for Will Levis to go. And can't imagine it's going to be the Jaguars at 27 or the Bengals at 28, maybe the Saints at 29, but I'm not sold on that completely. And then you got the Eagles and the Chiefs. So where unless you see someone jumping into the back end of the first round, which is always not a bad idea because you get that fifth year option on your first round picks. But do you foresee Will Levis falling out of this first round now?
I mean, it's conceivable. There's only one team left that I can foresee taking a quarterback with their with their situation that they have, and that's the Saints. At what is that, 29?
Yeah,
I think is where they're at. So I mean, hey, Will Levis is a guy that you can easily say as many teams that liked him equaled as many teams that did not like him, that weren't in love with this kid. So he could easily fall to the top half of the second round. But I mean, if you look at the second round, and you scroll back up here on my deal, if you look at the top end of the second round, you still have quarterback hungry teams at the top half of the second round. You know, you got Seattle comes back in at 6. You got the Raiders coming back in at 7. Saints are back there at 9. You know, 3 of the first 10 picks of the second round there. That would be 37, 38, and 40. Mm-hmm. So still possibility that he ends up still being in the top 40 picks in this draft.
And I'm just looking at teams now, just trying to find like a route there. Any potential that the Rams look at it and say, "Hey, we don't know how healthy Matt Stafford's going to be, or if he's going to what his future looks like in Los Angeles. Maybe we bring this kid along, and he's the future in Los Angeles, or maybe they have too many needs that they can't be worrying about a quarterback right now." So I'm not sure about that.
Well, they have no.
I think he only had like one bad year. He can rebound easily this year and get him back to the promised land. I don't think that they're done with Matt Stafford yet. I think
they're unloading a lot of guys though. They're in cap hell right now, and they're trying to trade Ramsey.
Very fair.
They're looking to try to get. They're trying to recoup draft picks. They get rid of Allen Robinson. So it's hard to tell if they're in win now mode.
And the one thing is remember Liam Coleman, who was his offensive coordinator 2 years ago. Left Kentucky, went to the Rams. So if they have any intel on Will Levis is Liam Coleman and Sean McVay have that connection. So, but you're talking about them trading back into the bottom of the first round to get him, or are you talking about if he drops in the second round?
But falling into the second, I don't see them trading into the first. I mean, I don't know what they're
36.
Yeah, they have 36.
Second round, 36.
It's just hard to comprehend that this is a guy that they thought could potentially go in the top 5, and he now is potentially falling out of the first round altogether as we wait for Dallas's pick, which they have about a minute and a half left on the clock. They could go tight end. They could maybe go interior lineman. Maybe you see.
Are you guys watching this? Their player comp.
Jason Witten. Yeah, for Michael Mayer is Jason Witten.
Yeah. So Michael Mayer I was just talking about really honestly what I had in my head, but I didn't necessarily want to go there. But
sure, that'd be the next. If they're going to go tight end, if that's why Buffalo jumped him, Michael Mayer is the next guy, and he's more of an inline tight end, like a Jason Witten than a Kincaid. I think Kincaid would be more of a guy that kind of, like I said, split out wide in the slot, and kind of use him as just in the passing game. But this is a guy that will be an inline tight end, and I think will be a pretty good dent tight end. So.
Joneses are happy.
I was going to say the War Room in Dallas clearly happy because they got their guy just like every other team did.
Draft room. Don't get scolded by Greg Gabriel now. Careful with your words.
Yes. Well, those people in there that make decisions who are super important, they seem like they're very happy with whoever they picked. So and then the Dallas watch party super excited as well. So we'll see.
You think someone's in there saying, "Hey, cameras are on, go," and start clapping? Hey.
Yeah, I'm sure that I feel for certain there's a production assistant in there saying, "All right, in 3, 2, cameras up." Everyone's happy.
No. We got our guy.
Looks like the pick is in. We're waiting for it. They're showing a lot of Mayer film there, so maybe they know something that we don't. But
it would make sense. It'd be a natural fit, honestly, with them. But and especially because with McCarthy taking over play calling, he said he wants to be more of a run centric team this year in terms of not just a passing offense. So with Mayer being a better blocker as opposed to Kincaid, I think that would be a more natural fit. So we'll see. You'll see what Dallas thinks here.
All right, we are currently at the number 26 pick, waiting for it to be announced. We're ready to figure out who Dallas Cowboys are going to take. But after that, we have the Jaguars, the Bengals, the Saints, the Eagles, and then the Chiefs will be the final pick in the first round. 31 picks this year, not 32, because the Dolphins lost their pick due to a tampering violation. And then we start tomorrow at 32, which would have been the Bears pick, but it is now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's a discussion for another time. And we'll see how some of that plays out.
Now that we have time, we've kind of thought about it a little bit. Oh, Mozzie Smith is the guy, huh?
Mozzie Smith, defensive tackle out of Michigan, goes to the Dallas Cowboys. So
This is
we
the guy
thought they
I
might
was
go tight end,
hoping
but
would
no.
drop to the Bears.
What
I
was
was hoping
all
it's gonna
the
jump to
Michael
Bears
Mayer
now.
highlights about that? What was that?
Well, it's because they're kind of just speculating.
So what do you think about this? Mozzie Smith, defensive tackle, going to the Dallas Cowboys, 6'3", 323, 33 and 3/4 inch arms, 9 and 3/4 inch hands. Goes to the Dallas Cowboys, who they have a pretty they got probably could have used they needed probably some defensive line help. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, this is a guy that really, if you put on his tape in Michigan, you think this guy was just a run stuffer. He's a dominant run stuffer, right? Two gapping, a guy that occupied blockers and let the linebackers eat. But he went to, you watch him some more and you see him how he utilizes himself. And it's a rare combination of size, foot agility, and movement skills for a guy this big at, as I said, 323. So, strong at the point of attack with good bend and pad level for a big man, very good run defender, very, very stout, and again, he's not a fat guy. He's a 323 that's got, some muscle to him, some definition to him, plays with a load in his hands. He can tuck and jerk offensive blockers back. He can stack and shed at the point of attack, and he can compress the pocket with power, and he can walk guys back. So I think this is a guy that has more pass rush potential than what he's displayed so far in Michigan. I think this guy could be a guy that could be better, if you will, at the pros than at the college level. So worst case scenario, he's a one technique, a guy that occupies blockers like he was doing in Michigan and let the linebackers eat there, or a guy can develop and become a guy that can probably get into the gaps now and create some havoc into the backfield as well. So, but just in terms of just right now, stout, powerful run blocker, that's going to be a guy that can kind of sit in the middle of the lineup, in the middle of the defensive line and eat blockers, and now with the potential to get better in terms of getting upfield and being a guy that disrupts the backfield with his pass rush.
Neil, what do you think about this guy? What is he going to bring to the Dallas Cowboys as far as long-term and potentially even being an impact on day one?
We got another guy that's a little bit older, senior academically, 6'3", 323, just under 10 hands, just under 34 arms. A 34-inch vertical, I believe, is what I have written down here. A guy that had a round 2 grade on, but he has a really unique combination of physical and athletic traits. He's got a lot of power. He also has a lot of lateral and short area quickness. A lot of upper body power and strength to torque defenders around. Win one-on-one. Can also make himself flat and small at the point of attack and get in the backfield, cause disruption. Very interesting player. Let's see, 30. No, the 34 was arm length. He had 34 arm length, had 29.5-inch vertical. So, it has been kind of like a really highly regarded kid ever since he was in high school. He was a 4-star kid in high school. He came into Michigan with a lot of pub. Had a really good 2022 senior year. We're kind of in that point in the draft right now where we're seeing guys that were probably priority second round picks being taken at the back end of round 1 for probably a couple of reasons, just to sort of beat other teams out on taking these picks. But then also you get that redshirt year, you get the opportunity to bring a guy in with that 5th round or that 5th year option. So this is kind of one of those unique, interesting parts of the draft right now, to where you'll see guys taking round 1 that you otherwise might not have expected.
And then we speaking of which, we're going on to pick 27, and the Jaguars are on the clock, and it looks like the pick is in for the Jaguars as we wait for them. And it was still Joey Porter Jr. still on the board, a guy that we thought might go in a couple different places, but he's still there. Could the Jaguars potentially go Joey Porter Jr.? Could they go Michael Mayer? What could they do here?
Again, the lost their offensive right tackle. I don't think they filled it via free agency. So, that could be something here, a spot here for Anton Harrison, the guy from Oklahoma. That could be a possibility. Matthew Bergeron, the kid from Syracuse, has played left, right tackles, played guard as well. So you guy could be flexible too. So, if they're going offensive line, tackle specifically, those are the guys. If you want to go as best available offensive lineman, Steve Avila from TCU is a guy that can play interior, either guard position or center. You want to go specifically center, John Michael Schmitz from Minnesota is available as well. So, and there is Anton Harrison, the tackle. Yeah. So they lost their right tackle. So this is going to fill in probably for them.
So Anton Harrison goes to the Jaguars at 27. He's 21 years old, 350 pounds, 6'4", 9 1/4 inch hands, 34 and 1/8 inch arms. Ran the 40 and 4.98. Danny? You said they lost their right tackle. So is this their day one starter when he gets into the building?
He's been primarily a left tackle, but he does have right tackle experience at Oklahoma. So, he's a guy that could potentially come in and start from day one. 6'4", 315, 34 and 1/8 arm length. The positives for me are good size, looks every bit the part with long arms and a very athletic, well-distributed frame. Possesses the quick feet along with the lateral agility and the ability to, quickly spring out of a stance. This is a guy that could play some left tackle, has been playing left tackle for Oklahoma, and could easily now swing over and play right tackle is my assumption here for the Jaguars. So yeah, he was my next best available tackle, if you will, and he goes here to Jacksonville.
Niel, another tackle goes off the board. Looks like it could be the last one in the first round. Was this a good fit for the Jaguars to go and get Anton Harrison?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he would have been a good fit in Chicago, to be 100% honest with you. I just don't think we would have. At the position that I expected him to go in this draft, the Bears would not have had a chance in hell of bringing him into Chicago. Was the next offensive tackle on my board. Matthew Bergeron is the next one after him. Just kind of like a really athletically gifted dude, man. He's very smooth, very fluid, very bendy. Was another one of these guys that showed really well at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. A really nice performance, and was highly regarded by several scouts that I talked to about the kid, coming out of that particular event. So, great pickup for them. I really like this kid. If he was a guy that would have been on the board, had the Bears, gone aggressive, traded up into the front end of round 2, and we not taken an offensive line with the first pick, that and Matthew Bergeron, those would be the two guys that if I were Poles, I'd be deliberating doing.
And the official selection of Harrison is happening right now to Jacksonville. There it is. And so we move to pick number 28, which is the Cincinnati Bengals. Probably a couple of options here. They could potentially be in the Joey Porter Jr. sweepstakes, but they could also go and get an interior alignment. And Danny, the one is leaving my mind. Go ahead and bring him up that you like so much.
Steve Avila is the best interior lineman. If you talk about pure center, John Michael Schmitz is a guy you mentioned in the first round, but I think they lost Hayden Hurst, their tight end. So this is a spot where they could go and get probably either, if they want more of a tight end where they can kind of flank them out. Luke Musgrave is a guy you can do. If you want more of an inline guy, total complete tight end, Michael Mayer is a guy that'd be a nice fit for them there. Give Joe Burrow a nice release valve there in terms of as a tight end position. So it depends on what they want to do. So they have options there. But yeah, Avila is the best interior offensive lineman. And heck, he could play center, guard, left guard, right guard, or if you want just a pure center, John Michael Schmitz is the guy there.
What are you going into this pick, Neil? It's pick number 28. If you're the Bengals, what are you looking at? Who do you think is the best available? Or do you, at this point, do you take best available, or do you draft to your need?
I think you're still at need level, man. The first round picks are really need level picks, unless you are at a point where you just have an embarrassment of riches and you just go ahead and take the best fit to the loosest hole that you have. Seeing some comments in the group chat about DeJuan Jones would be a good fit. I think they do need an offensive lineman, a tackle to come in and anchor down one of the sides.
Well, they do have him. They signed Orlando Brown. They signed Orlando Brown as a free agent, but he's playing left tackle.
They did sign Orlando Brown. That's right.
Yeah, and their left tackle, Jonah Williams, says, "I'm not playing right tackle. He wants to be traded." So there is some there. So there possibly could be a need for a right tackle with the Bengals. So.
And it looks like they made their mind up pretty quick. The pick's already in for the Cincinnati Bengals. So as we wait for that to hit, they could go lineman. Danny, I think that you make a pretty good point about the tight end position. They could go there because when you're in the AFC and you have Joe Burrow, you're gonna have to outgun a lot
Miles
of teams.
Murphy.
And is that they go Miles Murphy?
Yeah,
Miles Murphy,
defensive end, Clemson.
All right, then forget what I was just saying. They go Miles Murphy, and they bolster the other side of the ball. What do you guys like about Miles Murphy? What does he bring to Cincinnati?
Yeah, this is when you're you ever heard that term when a team comes off the bus, you want Miles Murphy, first guy coming off the bus, because he's got the prototypical size, the body, the frame, everything you look for. At 6'5", 268, 68 pounds. He's got 33 plus inch arm length, and he's a guy that's got a quick first step in terms of getting into the backfield. He's a guy that's a solid run defender as well. A guy that can set the edge and funnel everything back inside. He was kind of sold as a premier pass rusher coming into the whole draft process, but breaking him down, he's not one of those premier pass rusher guys. He's a guy that's more of a straight line guy. If an offense tackle kind of cuts off his angle to the quarterback, he's kind of stuck there for a little bit. That has to develop a better counter move, but he's got the athletic ability. So for me, I saw him as a possibility for the Bears, possibly in the second round, where he'd be like a nice base, left defensive end, a guy that he's not gonna be your double-digit sack guy year in and year out, but he's gonna be a solid player, a guy who's get you 6-7 sacks a season and play good solid run defense. So I think that's who the Bengals got here with Miles Murphy.
So they go defense with their pick at 28, which means we go to 29 with the Saints, which we were talking about potentially is, unless someone jumps back in, could be the last landing spot for Will Levis. What do you think the odds are at 29 that the Saints would actually pull the trigger on Will Levis as a quarterback in the first round?
So you're saying there's a chance? I guess is all I can say. I'm not sure what else I could tell you. I thought Will Levis would have been way gone by now, but we'll see. Unless there's a team, again, we talked about top of the second round that wants to jump back in and get Will Levis. I think he might actually drop out of the first round if the Saints don't pull a trigger here on him as well. But the Saints have other needs as well. Michael Thomas is a guy I know they kept, but he's a guy that's always hurt. So do they need a receiver there? I'm not sure they're off the top of my head. Their tight end is there. Could Michael Mayer fall in there for them as well? So, there's a lot of questions and issues there with the Saints. So, I'm curious to see how they go. Go defense.
I just don't think they go get a quarterback because they signed Carr to I think it was like a 4-year, $150 million contract. I don't think they can get out really from under it for another 2 years. Like, he's there for 2 years regardless. So I don't know if you draft Will Levis and say, like, maybe in 3 years you're the guy. And Danny, we had this conversation before where I think the Saints are in the driver's seat to win that division right now. So you go and you try to go and you get somebody that can help you win that division, host a playoff game, and then once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. So maybe you're not thinking about 2-3 years from now, whenever you think that you can potentially win the division this year. So I think a tight end would make some sense. Neil, what do you think that they go here?
I'm actually looking at their roster right now, like tight ends wise. They have 4 on the roster. Let's see, Miller Forrestal, Taysom Hill is listed as a tight end.
Yeah.
He's kind of, one of your Swiss Army knife type of dudes. Jawan Johnson, Lucas Kroll, and Adam Troutman. None of those guys really, scream and stand out to me. So, yeah, I guess if you look at it that way, tight end could be a good place to go to get a difference maker, a playmaker, on the offensive side of the ball.
And did you anticipate, and not to say that it's going to happen, because there could still be some movement in these last 3 picks, but would it surprise you if not just Will Levis falls out of the first round, but Joey Porter Jr. falls out of the first round? Would that be surprising to you?
That would be surprising to me for sure.
It would be a little bit too much, yeah. Because I know that, like, my biggest thing with him was the ball skills. They weren't there. There are times where he got a little too arrogant and drew a couple flags. Talkative with the ref and got into some altercations. Just being a guy that's competitive, right? So nothing major there. But just the ball hawking thing was not there. Just one interception. Throughout his career was something that I think if you're an NFL team, you want to see a corner, be that someone that could go and get the ball and take it away. So there are a lot more times where he had opportunity to make an interception, he just couldn't catch the ball. So Corners that can catch the ball are usually devalued a little bit. But in terms of physicality, he's a guy that, comes downhill and will wrap up. He's got 34-inch arms, long arm, good size. So, he's a guy that can be physical so, we'll see how it goes. But other than just the ball skills, I'm not sure what else could have been in terms of why he's dropping. Because I think his testing, I think I have here somewhere his scores. I mean, he wasn't like horrible in terms of his, you got it? Yeah.
Yeah. 6024, 193, 446 with a 1.5 split,
Yeah.
10 hands, 80-78, wingspan, 34 arms, 35-inch vert, 10-9 broad.
Yeah.
17 reps on the bench.
Size wise, speed wise, athletically wise, testing wise, if it fits the bill. Is there anything else that we don't know about in terms of medical, personality, interviews? That's something that could always be a possibility because we're not privy to that information. So, that's the one thing with
those sort of bloodlines that teams would sort of value that over if you come down to splitting hairs, teams would value his bloodlines, right?
Right.
At least like how to be a professional, understanding that being around the game your entire life. And they're looking at some of the best available, and these are completely arbitrary lists, but looking at some of the best available, Joey Porter Jr. is on top of the list, and then Will Levis, and then Mike Mayer, Nolan Smith still out there, Brian Branch, the safety out of Bama, it makes that best available list now. Not to say that he's going to go in the first round, but he's
the pick is in.
The pick is in now.
Brian Bresee from Clemson, defensive tackle.
Okay, so I've been whiffing the last couple. Now you have a defensive lineman out of Clemson. It is the pick here, 21 years old, 298 pounds. Looks like he's 32.5-inch arms, 10 1/4 inch hands. Ran the 40 and 4.86. What do we know about him, and what does he bring into the table? Because this is someone that I am not overly educated with for the Saints' most recent pick here.
Yeah, this guy was a highly touted kid coming out of high school. He was one of the top high school recruits out of Maryland. Started as a true freshman. Won the ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year in his first year, and then it was kind of downhill from there. I mean, he's a guy that's got a lot of injuries. He's been a 3-year starter, but for me, when I watched him, he's got the athletic ability, but it just doesn't just come together for me. He's a guy that looks like he could be a gap penetrating defensive lineman, with the size and the ability he's got, but then he gets washed out easily by a blocker, and then he is again talked about some of the off the field stuff that he had to deal with as well. So maybe that kind of all compound on him, but he's definitely he came back. He said he's healthier, he's better. I think he had a kidney infection or something like that as well, where it kind of was really, really bad, lost weight and all that stuff. So he's been through a lot in his career at Clemson. Again, highly touted kid, had a pretty good start to his career at Clemson, just tailed off from there. So now goes to the combine and really just blows it up. Ran a 4.86 40 with a 1.71 10-yard split, a 29-inch vertical at at 302 pounds. So he's a guy that's got athletic ability, but just hasn't been able to put it together. His first career was only at 9 sacks, and this guy was a 3-year starter. So again, there's some of that a lot of people talked about for the Bears. I didn't like him. I don't like him as a fit. I don't like him as a prospect. So the Saints obviously did, and hopefully he does well for them over there.
So we got 2 picks left, and it's the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. We didn't get the run on tight ends like we thought we might. I mean, barring something crazy, we're not going to get the 3 tight ends. We did get that big run on wide receivers where 4 in a row were taken. Will Levis is still out there. So now you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, which you look at some of their needs, and maybe they wanted to bolster their defensive secondary a little bit, or maybe they wanted to add another receiver for Jalen Hurts. But looking at best available, that doesn't necessarily fit their bill. So if you're the Eagles, who do you think?
This could be a Brian Branch spot because they lost C.J. Garner-Johnson to the Lions. Branch is some of a similar player, a guy that can play safety, a guy that can come in and be a nickel corner as well, cover that slot corner. So Brian Branch from Alabama could be a possibility. There's also be a possibility for teams that want to trade up back into the first round with the Eagles, and because Howie Roseman always likes to trade down and recoup more picks for next year and so on and so forth. So he's already traded up to the Bears and gave up a 4th round pick to get Jalen Carter. So maybe he's looking to trade back, and a team wants to come back into the bottom of the first round and get a player that could be dropping. So that could be an option here as well. But if they stick with the pick, Brian Branch is a guy you can take a look at. Howie Roseman loves offense and defensive linemen. They lost the guard Samotu from their left guard. So maybe Steve Avila would be a pick here for them. A guy that's really really, again, talked about him before, a guy that can scheme versatile, can play a power gap, can play a wide zone, can play any of the 3 interior positions, to be honest with you. So he could be a guy that can plug and play there for them when having lost their guard. So the Eagles just, again, another team that's rich get richer. I mean, the fact that they got Jalen Carter, that's one thing I really want to talk about is the more I think about it, the more it kind of eats at me as I hope Ryan Poles, I haven't seen anything yet posted, so I don't think he's spoken. I think they're going to wait after the first round, but hope he has a reason why he passed on Jalen Carter, especially just for a 4th round pick. So anyway, so that's something that's going to bother me until I get an explanation from Ryan Poles in terms of why he did that. So, but yeah, I mean, in terms of Eagles, those are the 2 players I would think at right now.
As we wait for the first round to kind of conclude, I believe we do have some audio and video from the Bears pick Darnell Wright, who was obviously their big pick of the night. Let's see what we got from him.
You're obviously emotional. What's going through your head right now?
Yeah, I'm trying to put a good sentences together and stuff. I'm trying to make sure I sound good and stuff, but I don't know. My head is racing a 1,000 miles per hour. I'm trying to I don't know. I'm just trying to. I don't even know what I'm trying to do. Just talk.
How much contact did you have with the Bears, and what was the experience like playing for Luke Getsy at the Senior Bowl?
Yeah, it was funny. I was at the Senior Bowl, and Luke was our offensive coordinator, and or he was part of it. And it's funny. He's offensive coordinator at the Bears, and it's like a full circle moment a little bit. It's crazy. It means a lot, I already have a relationship a little bit with that guy. Hope it gets, I don't know.
Darnell, you were a 4-year starter in an era where, a lot of guys ended up leaving early. What was your decision to stay at Tennessee, and what do you think that extra year provided you as far as experience that you can carry over to the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, we went through a time, if everybody knows, we had some things going on. It felt like the whole house was crumbling in itself. We didn't know if we were going to get like a bowl ban. We didn't know if we'd even have, there was so many things happening. But, just thinking back, I was like, just control and then just try to do the best you can. Like, it's got to get control, just try to be the best you could be. And I think that's probably for a lot of situations. Like, I couldn't control in the draft where I was going to go, although I'm somewhere I really wanted to be. So it's almost like a plus. I don't think a lot of people get that lucky, but I don't know, just control what you can control, and the rest just do the best with what you got.
Darnell, when you say you were shocked by this, did you have much indication? Were there many hints leading up to this that you would go this high or that you would go to the Bears?
Well, I knew Coach Shimon. I knew he liked me a lot. I knew Coach Ryan Pose liked me a lot, and I don't, you never know. You can try to say, I think they're going to pick me. But then again, Coach Shimon, we just actually got off the phone. He was saying, it was so hard not to just call you and tell you, like, hey, man, we're going to pick you. But it's just, that's part of the, that's part of the game that they play, or, it's part of what they do. I don't know much about that, but I'm sure you don't just want to show your hand before it's dealt. So I don't know. It's just, it was crazy, but,
Did you come into Chicago on a visit?
Expected to go this high?
No. I knew as far as my talent and what I could do, I knew I could go this high. But it just took the right team to just see that, the right coaches that know what they're looking at. They know what I can be. I haven't even reached the scratch or surface of what I could be. So I think they know that, and I know that. It's going to be fun.
So did they bring you in? Like, how well have you got to know Simo?
Yeah. They brought me in, and he also came and worked me out. He he kicked my ass. To be honest, it was not. You know what I mean? He wanted to see what I was made of, and I mean it was hard, and I didn't quit. So, you know, I think he respected that.
How did he kick your ass?
I mean, he put me through the ringer. I mean, we were out there working. You know, you go you're about 15 minutes in, and you're going back to back to back. Then you're still going back to back to back. Then another 10 minutes pass, you're going. Then another maybe 10 minutes pass. And he just wants to see if I quit, and I wouldn't quit.
Is that the most workout you got?
I mean, as far as like, because you know, there's a difference between like a practice. You know, you're taking water breaks in between. You're going back to back to back, and that, you know, there's no rest. So you'll definitely see what you're made of a little bit in that little session.
And now, when was that workout, and where was it?
Ooh, the date I wouldn't know exactly, but it was at the Tennessee facility. I don't know the exact date. I could probably go through my message and see, but I'm not sure. It was probably a little bit before maybe after my second 2 visits. It was about right there.
You've gotten a lot of praise for the game you had against Will Anderson. What do you make of that day and what it meant for your stock and the impressions of who you are as a tackle?
Yeah, I think you can get a small bit of who I am in that game, but I don't know. The Alabama game is, to me, and people that kind of watch, like, there's a lot of my games you can go and see kind of what I'm about. But I mean, I appreciate that game. I mean, I like to play against the best players, and I feel like Will is one of the best players in the draft. Obviously, coaches see that in him as well. So I don't know.
There is absolutely nothing going on with me romantically.
Well, now that we are going into our Hillary Duff analyst here, because the draft is a slog. It's 3 hours long, and eventually we start breaking down Hillary Duff's new Hulu series. But anyway, you hear from Darnell right there. Obviously very excited. And as we get to the second to last pick, Nolan Smith goes to Philadelphia, edge rusher out of Georgia. You know, that Eagles seem like they're having an all right draft with Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. Danny, what do you think? What do you think about that?
Yeah, Neil made a joke earlier that we're going to call Eagles the Philadelphia Bulldogs, but I mean that's another Bulldog. I mean they had Kobe Dean and Jordan Davis last year, and then this year they added Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. You know, so that's the rich get richer, man. I'm telling you that's how you draft. You get to the point where you just go trenches, and you got, you know, possibly the best player, the best defensive lineman in this draft with the 9th pick. And then you got a super athletic linebacker that, you know, the comp to him is Hassan Reddick. And that's obviously who they have on their defense as well. So he's a guy that's going to probably redshirt a year, I'm thinking, right. And just sit down there and watch and learn from Hassan Reddick. And then, you know, when he's ready to move on, and just, you know, plug and play here with Nolan Smith. So that's the way. Harry Roseman is one of the more underrated GMs, I think, in football. He just does a great job year in, year out in terms of drafting. You know, he's got whiffs here and there, but they all do. So, you know, hats off to the Eagles, man. The rich get richer.
They sure do. And Neil, what do you like about Nolan Smith?
I mean, if we're just talking about the Eagles right now, man, they've got a defensive line. They got trenches just full of dogs, not just in the sense of where these guys came from, but just dudes. You know what I mean? Like they got some rare specimens today, and you know, I know all of our fan base could say what they want to say about passing on Jalen Carter, but when it comes down to it, if you're the GM, you need to feel 1,000% comfortable that you're getting the type of human. And also putting that type of human in a particular situation in terms of the locker room, to where if there are any flags, question marks, whatever the case may be, that you have enough grown-ups in place to be able to pull that guy back on track. And, you know, perhaps that was the issue that scared Poles away, was that he didn't quite feel strong enough about the level of leadership in that locker room currently, to where if there was there were a few things that made him a little bit squeamish about Jalen Carter. If there were a few things that did make him feel that way, that he had the type of individuals that can make it right. So, which says, you know, something else about the locker room, is that we need more leaders in the locker room, to be honest with you. But when it comes down to it, Poles has to feel 1,000% comfortable in that decision to take Jalen Carter. You didn't feel comfortable with it. Eagles take him. Now they take his buddy Nolan. and they have some absolute monsters in that defense right now. So kudos to them. And one of my best friends is director of player personnel over there. Very happy for him. There is Jalen Carr, Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, N'Kobe Dean. Dogs, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute dogs.
And maybe try and run against that defensive front with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter there.
A formidable outfit, to say the least, as we look to the last pick of the first round, which belongs to the Kansas City Chiefs. Pick number 31 in the first round. They could go, I guess, a number of ways here. They already got a Super Bowl winning roster. So what do they do to supplement that roster? Do they go best available and maybe take someone like a Joey Porter Jr.? Do they go and they maybe find another tight end with Travis Kelce being 33 years old? They try to find somebody else to put into that system. Where do you think that what do you think the Kansas City Chiefs do to kind of round out this first round?
Well, I mean, they lost Mecole Hardman, so I would think that maybe if you want to try and get a weapon for Mahomes, the best receiver right now is Jalen Hyatt. He gives you that speed element. I'm not sure if that's fit with there. I mean, Josh Downs is a shifty, quick receiver in a slot, from North Carolina. Marvin Mims Jr. is from Oklahoma. He's a guy I like a lot, but I think that might be too rich right now in the first round for him. So, if you're going receiver, that could be an option. If you go, obviously they lost. Let's say they lost Orlando Brown, but they signed Jawan Taylor, so they got that. And so maybe a right tackle, because I don't know if they ever filled right. They lost Josh Riley as well, so I'm not sure if they ever filled right tackle. So that could be an option for them too.
They go corner.
They could go corner, could be an option as well with Spagnuolo and liking those aggressive corners as well. So although they had a couple corners last year, a couple rookies that played well for them too. So I know running back was an option for them, but I think that was when they're talking about Jahmyr Gibbs being available. So I'm not sure that's going to be an option here now with because I don't think a third running back's going to go in the first round. So we'll see what happens. But I if I had to bet, I'd say maybe a receiver, some sort of weapon. I don't know if a tight end is going to be what they want to get, but I say a receiver.
What do you think about Tyler Scott out of Cincinnati? Seems like a solid player, but maybe not gonna blow the lid off of anything.
Yeah, I think that'd be too rich right now for Tyler Scott here at this pick in the first round. So I mean, if I was them, maybe they go defensive line, because I know they're looking maybe at possibly a pass rusher. So there's a couple of guys out there, in terms of defense, like Keon White is a guy that could be a guy in the middle that kind of mimic Chris Jones, if you will, a nice big defensive lineman. Zach Pickens is a guy there. Benton, the kid from Wisconsin, is also an option here as well. So, talk about Uzuma, the pass rusher from Kansas State, is still out here as well. So, if they want to go defensive line, those are options there too.
So while we wait for the Chiefs pick, let's go and look ahead to tomorrow with the Bears' second round picks. They pick later on in the second round. Who are you hoping is still there? Who are you targeting? What position? What do you think that the Bears should be zeroing in on tomorrow after seeing this first round play out?
Defense, and more defense, man. That's what I'm looking at right now. Is especially if you have no more picks, you just have the 3 picks. So you need a defensive tackle, you need an edge rusher, and obviously Zuma, if he's there, that'd be great. Benton, if he's there, that'd be great as well. Keanu Benton from Wisconsin. I'm a huge Tuli Tuipulotu fan, but I think he might be available in the third round. So maybe with pick 64. That's a guy that, again, projecting. He's an edge, projecting inside, or he's a defensive end, not projecting inside to a 3 technique. Keon White is a guy that Georgia Tech, again, a 1-year kind of wonder, only had 1 year big year. Was it tight end, Old Dominion, transferred to Georgia Tech, had a productive this past year. Zach Pickens is a guy, another big body defensive lineman that's got some twitch to him as well. Byron Young is a guy from Alabama I like too, a defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman. That's I think is going to be pretty good at the next level. But he also could be a guy late second, early third. So depends there. But those are the tight guys there. And in terms of corners, we talked about guys like I've talked about a guy I like a lot, and that's Julius Brents from Kansas State. Terrell Smith from Minnesota, Cam Smith from South Carolina. It could be options there in the second round as well. So if you want to decide to go corner there too, but yeah, defense has got to be the name of the game. And I think then you could revisit, as well. the offensive line or receiver or maybe like a tight end in day 3. But I think tomorrow it's got to be defensive centric.
You agree with that, Neil? That you got to be heavy defense tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that guys like Adebawore, Keon White, Hall out of Auburn, Derek Hall are guys that could theoretically,
Derek Hall,
the guys that could theoretically be there, and 53 or 61, certainly 63 as well, or 64 with first pick of the 3rd round, whatever that is. Cornerbacks wise, another guy that I love that Danny talked about a couple guys I love. Another guy that I love is Darius Rush out of South Carolina. Would love to have that guy in Chicago, man. He is extremely unique.
And there's the 31st.
I didn't want to say his name. I said his name at the last pick, and damn it, they took him.
It's all yours, Danny.
Yeah, I mean, this is the other guy that I had put as edge rusher, as I really had highlighted him. He's a guy a little bit undersized, about 6'3", 255. But you talk about a guy that first step quickness. He's got the bend to be able to get around the edge. Had 8 forced fumbles. This is a guy that gets to the quarterback and has a way to get the ball out of it and create those turnovers. So this would have been a hell of a pickup here as an edge rusher. So good pick for the Chiefs. He's a guy that's going to come in and be an instant impact, probably like a situational pass rusher right away. Again, first step quickness, the ability to bend the edge, bend the corner, and then again 8 forced fumbles. Is able to get to that quarterback and get that ball out of there. So good pickup.
Is this a guy you were hoping fell to the Bears in the 2nd round?
Yeah, this is a guy hoping fell to the Bears 2nd round.
And he goes in number 31 in the 1st round. So as we wait for that. Good.
Sorry, I was just to say realistically, we probably would have had to trade up to get this guy.
Yeah.
If we're being honest.
So that is the final pick of the 1st round. As we go through nearing 4 hours of coverage here for the 1st round of the NFL draft, we appreciate everyone that's been here from at any point, whether you're here from the entire time or you just stopped in for a couple minutes. But guys, as we start to wind things down here, what are some of the surprises you saw today, and then your overall analysis of the Bears pick of Darnell Wright? Neil, I'll start with you.
I love Darnell Wright. I mean, I don't know about surprises. I mean, I think we've kind of talked anecdotally about some things that were a little bit surprising today, but I think for the most part, guys we expected to go in the 1st round win the 1st round. I think probably the most surprising thing was 4 receivers. Didn't necessarily expect that. I suppose I expected Will Levis to get taken by somebody. But I mean, to me though, if we're talking about, team specific draft boards or analyst specific draft boards, in our case, I like Hendon Hooker a hell of a lot more than I like Will Levis, but again, beauty in the eye beholder type stuff. But I love Darnell Wright. I'm amped up about this pick. Talking about him earlier on the show, just a big physical athletic dude. That, again, not as athletically gifted as somebody like a Broderick Jones, somebody like a Paris Johnson, but, for 333 pounds, this dude can absolutely move, and he looks to throw you on your ass. Had a great, week down there in Mobile, showed really well, was well received by his peers. Offensive tackle of the week for his one particular team. So plug and play guy's going to come in immediately and be the starter at right tackle. And ultimately, what we came here to do today was fix a glaring hole in the offensive line room or the defensive line room, whichever way that sorted itself out. Right, we had a massive hole at defensive end edge rusher. We had a massive hole at right tackle. We needed to fill one of those 2 spots, and we did. So now what the Bears need to do, what Poles needs to do tomorrow, and hopefully before the end of the draft is fix these other holes we have, because. Again, like we were talking about with Kalijah Kancey, we don't just need dudes that could be nice additions. We need guys that are absolute fixes. And that's the reason why we don't take guys like Kalijah Kancey, especially as early as some of the other teams took them. So it'll be an interesting day tomorrow. Again, defense. Let's fix all the holes. I would also not not object to an interior offensive lineman at some point tomorrow if we fall our way into extra picks. But long day again tomorrow. We have 3 picks on the board right now as we sit here today at this current moment, 10:56 p.m. Chicago time. Outside of that, guys, as always, glad to be here. Glad you guys came in to chat. Love all the participation. And as always, like, subscribe, hit the bell, notifications, all the different types of things. Share it out to your friends. show us appreciation. We love being here for you. We love, talking with you at draft or in the comments about the draft. We'll see you next time.
All right, Danny, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, in terms of surprises, obviously Will Levis and Joey Porter Jr. and Michael Mayer even dropping out of the first round were three guys that, I think predominantly the theory or the thought was all three guys were going to go in the first round. So those three dropping out were surprises. Obviously with the Bears pick, and Darnell Wright is a good pick. He's not a bad pick. He wasn't my top offensive lineman, but again, my top offensive lineman was off the board, and Paris Johnson. And while I did have Broderick Jones listed higher than Darnell Wright, I know why they didn't pick Broderick Jones, because like we talked about before, 19 starts, left tackle only, still developing. Well, whereas Darnell Wright is a nasty SOB. He's a guy that's going to help reset the line of scrimmage. I think him and Nate Davis on the right side is going to be a nice, combination there to go ahead and run behind, whether it's, Foreman or Khalil Herbert. So I think that's, and he's Ryan Poles kind of offensive lineman. He's mean, he's nasty, doesn't have the athletic ability in terms of lateral agility that I prefer, but when he does get out, he does have good straight line speed, and he gets out to second, third levels. He will destroy those second and third level, corners or linebackers or whatnot. So, I think overall, I think he's a guy that was rising on a lot of draft boards. A lot of teams, especially when you met him after at the Senior Bowl, were really where this guy's stocks kind of started climbing. So that's not a surprise there. So I think that's a good pick. My thing was Jalen Carter. The fact that Jalen Carter was there and you traded the pick and gave him to the Eagles. I hope Poles addresses that. I hope he gives us his side of the story and his explanation in terms of why that was. Obviously, he's not getting into details, but just at least tell us that, hey, you weren't hoodwinked by Howie Roseman. Even if he was, I don't think he'd come out and admit it. But that's the thing is, he got a 4th round pick to go on one spot and passed up on Jalen Carter. So that was my biggest question here. Tomorrow, we talked about earlier, defense. You have not added anybody to a defensive line. You need pass rushers. You need a defensive line. We talked about some of the players that we like here tomorrow, whether it's corners, whether it's defensive line. You got to attack that. And then we'll see if you can make some magic here and trade back and maybe get some more picks. Who knows? We'll see how the board falls down. But they still got a lot of work to do. But the fact that the pick was on offensive line, it was a good start. He's a nasty, mean guy that's going to move bodies. That's a good start. It's going to help protect Justin Fields. Great start to the night, and let's see what happens tomorrow. But another shout out is one of the things that we do when we scout, we look at players and we watch them. We put down competitive toughness, and I wanted to show just mark somebody here who showed competitive toughness today in Mr. John Buffone here, playing hurt with a torn bicep muscle. I didn't see him pop any pills, so he's probably going with no medication. It looks like he's got some pain on his face right now. So hats off to you, John, for doing a great job and running the show tonight. And playing hurt, like I said, you just had surgery a couple of days ago, or actually a day ago, right? And hats off to you, man. Great job, dude.
Hey, appreciate that, fellas. Yeah, we play hurt. Yeah, we play hurt here at the bar room. We play hurt. We go on no matter what. But I appreciate that, and I wouldn't miss this no matter what. Yeah, I got just about 48 hours ago got this bicep reattached to the elbow, so it's a little tender, but we forged through it here. So I'll keep this short and sweet because I got to go to bed. But I appreciate everyone who jumped into the chat room and interacted with us. 4 hours is a long time, but a lot of you just gutted it out with us, so we appreciate that. I appreciate Danny and Neil because I defer to them for all this stuff because they know these things inside and out. They're such a great asset to have, such a great tool and resource to use when it comes to this stuff, and just providing incredible content where I just gotta, they will me in here with my one arm and I can just talk for 4 hours. So I can appreciate that. And of course, all the appreciation going to Aldo Gandia in the background, pulling the strings, making all those graphics, by the way, all that stuff that you saw on there. Aldo was just hammering away in his little lab, making all those graphics for all those players with all that information. That does just not happen. We just don't roll out here and turn a microphone on and this stuff happens. So I can't thank him enough for all of that as well. So thanks again for everyone that made this draft special possible. Thank you for everyone that tuned in, whether you're tuning into the live version, the video version, the audio version, the podcast version, the YouTube version, whatever or however you may be listening. We appreciate you. But that will wrap it up. We're about at 4 hours on the dot. So once again, thank you very much. The draft ain't over. We're just getting started. So stick around. We got you covered for the rest of the draft and then everything that goes along after that all throughout the offseason. So thanks, and make sure you hit that like button on the Barroom Network. But for Danny Shimon and Niel Stopczynski, I'm John Buffone. We'll see you next
tomorrow.
Time.